Chapter 265. Reading on the mobile phone, an old drunkard was surprised that Lin Tian could make the sword burn with flames when he executed the first move of the 9 styles of the burning sun. At the same time, an old drunkard was also surprised that Lin Tian could execute the move in such a short time. Although he had taught Lin Tian by example, an old drunkard's comprehension speed was truly monstrous. Not bad. An old drunkard smiled. Lin Tian smiled, and the inner spirit sword burned even more fiercely. With a slash, the flaming sword chi that filled the sky was instantly dispersed. For a time, the sound of metal clanging could be heard in the forest. At the same time, in the 100 Refinements workshop, a furious roar resounded throughout the 100 Refinements workshop, causing all the disciples to tremble in fear. The owner of the 100 Refinements workshop and the others returned to the 100 Refinements workshop from the Burning Sun sect. Apart from the Supreme Elder who was unscathed, the owner of the 100 Refinements workshop and the others had lost an arm. One could imagine the anger and hatred in their hearts. At this moment, a group of people gathered in a large hall. Only the Supreme Elder who had stayed behind in the 100 Refinements workshop was unscathed. He stared at the owner of the 100 Refinements workshop and the others with a shocked expression. The Supreme Elder's expression was solemn. It's really that Li Changfeng's. The owner of the 100 Refinements workshop gritted his teeth, and his face was filled with killing intent. Like the owner of the 100 Refinements workshop, the other 2 Supreme Elders' faces were ashen, and their eyes were bloodshot. They had gone to the Burning Sun sect to ask for Mu Hong, but they did not expect an old drunkard to suddenly appear. Not only did Mu Hong die, but the 3 of them also lost an arm each. Even the treasures and elixirs that they had collected over the years were all gone. At this moment, a loud sound was heard from the depths of the hall. It sounded like the beating of a drum. The Supreme Elder of the 100 Refinements workshop said coldly, "Let's ignore Li Changfeng for now. The Demon Burial Valley will open in half a month. Li Changfeng will definitely let his disciples enter the Demon Burial Valley to train. In this half a month, do your best to raise the combat power of a few core disciples. We must capture him alive in the Demon Burial Valley. As long as we obtain the complete 100 Refinements secret technique, the strength of our 100 Refinements workshop will increase by 1,000 times. At that time, we will kill Li Changfeng." The owner of the 100 Refinements district and the others gritted their teeth. Their eyes were filled with cold light. On the other side, in the 7 Profound Pavilion, Yi Jingshang was killed by the Burning Sun sect? The 7 Profound Pavilion master's expression changed. Damn it, when did he go to the Burning Sun sect? And that Li Changfeng, that man actually returned to the Burning Sun sect? Pavilion Master, what should we do? Someone said with a sullen expression. Let's get to the bottom of this before we decide what to do. The 7 Profound Pavilion Master said. Beside him, another person said, "Pavilion Master, the Demon Burial Valley will open in half a month." I know. Tell the disciples to prepare well, especially the core disciples. Looking outside, the 7 Profound Pavilion Master's expression was very ugly. No matter what, the Zephyr Realm experts were the pillars of the sect. However, one of them had died just like that. This was a huge blow to the 7 Profound Pavilion. However, he could not do anything for the time being, because Yi Jingshang had died in the Burning Sun sect at the hands of an old drunkard. As someone from the same generation as an old drunkard, the 7 Profound Pavilion Master was very clear about how terrifying an old drunkard was. Moreover, he could imagine that Yi Jingshang was not in the right in this matter. Otherwise, the Burning Sun sect would not have killed Yi Jingshang without any scruples. Incompetent, the 7 Profound Pavilion Master scolded. With a flick of his sleeve, he walked into the depths of the 7 Profound Pavilion. Almost at the same time, the Valley of the Harp received news that Suyu had died in the Burning Sun sect. He brought this upon himself. Yu Wushuang shook her head with an indifferent expression. Yu Wushuang naturally understood Suyu very well. Suyu had followed the people of the 100 Refinements Square to the Burning Sun sect. She more or less guessed something. It seems that an old drunkard's current strength is unstoppable among the 4 sections. He is indeed as strong as before. Valley Master, which disciples will be sent to the demon burial valley? A voice sounded. Someone walked in. It was also an elder of the Valley of the Harp. Although the demon burial valley is full of opportunities, there are also many dangers. Yu Wushuang looked at the old woman who walked in and said, "Let's follow the previous years and only allow disciples who have reached the sea of consciousness realm to enter. This will reduce the casualties." Valley Master's words are reasonable. This old woman also thinks so. After all, those children are still young and cannot wither prematurely. The old woman said, Then I will trouble Elder Sunday," Yu Wushuang said. Elder Sun smiled and waved her hand, then left. Burning Sun Sect, Demon Sealing Gorge. Clang! The sound of the sword was ear-piercing, and the flaming sword radiance swept across the field, scorching some of the nearby bushes. In the bushes, two figures were fighting. One of them was holding a long sword, which was completely covered in flames. The other figure was holding an ordinary dry branch. Normally, when a branch came into contact with flames, it would quickly be burned to ashes. However, this branch kept colliding with the flaming sword, but it was not damaged at all. Clang! 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 The branch and the flaming sword kept colliding with each other, emitting the crisp sound of metal colliding. The fourth sword, tornado. A cold shout sounded. Suddenly, the wind in the bushes shook violently. Dozens of flaming tornadoes appeared, causing the air to sizzle. "Not bad, very strong." The other person laughed. "White lotus sword." Suddenly, dense white lotuses appeared in the air. Then, the white lotuses quickly condensed into a large sword, flowing with brilliant light. The two figures fighting were naturally Lin Tian and an old drunkard. Since an old drunkard brought Lin Tian to the demon sealing gorge to cultivate, 10 days had passed in the blink of an eye. In these 10 days, an old drunkard not only taught Lin Tian the 9 forms of the incinerating sun, but also honed the white lotuses that grew in Lin Tian's knowledge sea. This allowed Lin Tian to have a better control of the white lotuses. At this time, the flaming tornadoes attacked from all directions. The lotus sword in the knowledge sea ignored everything and rushed straight to an old drunkard. Heh! An old drunkard smiled and gently swung the branch. With a sizzle, all the flaming tornadoes collapsed. At the same time, the lotus sword seemed to be blocked and bounced back. "The fifth sword bursting flames," Lin Tian shouted. As he swung the sword, the heart spirit's sword trembled. The air became scorching hot, and the sky was full of flames. Now, when he used the 9 forms of the incinerating sun, the power of fire in his vital essence was completely mobilized. It was much more powerful than when he merged his fire vital essence into the Azure Thunder Sword technique. It was a qualitative difference. He also finally understood an old drunkard's words. He, who had refined the fire crystals, was indeed very suitable to cultivate the 9 forms of the incinerating sun. Good. An old drunkard praised. The two figures continued to fight in the bushes. It was not until another 2 hours had passed that they stopped. Lin Tian squatted on the side, panting heavily. In these 10 days, an old drunkard had been suppressing his strength, but it was still very difficult for him to fight with an old drunkard. It felt like an ant trying to shake an elephant. However, although he was very tired these 10 days, he could clearly feel that his strength had increased tremendously. In 10 days, you've cultivated the 5th form of the 9 forms of the incinerating sun. You've also mastered the strange phenomenon in your mind. It's very good. Compared to 10 days ago, your combat strength has at least doubled. After a pause, an old drunkard smiled and said, "I don't think you can learn the 6th to 9th forms in a short time, so there's no need to practice now. Next, I'll pass on the essence of the 10th form to you. Remember it well." Ah! Lin Tianyi was stunned. The 10th form? He remembered that there were only 9 forms of the 9 forms of the incinerating sun. Where did the 10th form come from? An old drunkard grinned. The 9 forms of the incinerating sun, indeed, only have 9 forms. But I, your master, had nothing to do, so I combined the first 9 forms and created the 10th form. You, Lin Tian's eyes widened. He created the 10th form of the incinerating sun. Don't waste time. Watch carefully. I'll only show it to you today. As an old drunkard spoke, his entire aura suddenly changed. Lin Tianji saw that an old drunkard seemed to be performing the first form of the 9 forms of the incinerating sun all the way to the 9th form. An old drunkard performed the 9 forms in a cycle, slowly simplifying them. After dozens of breaths, an old drunkard slashed out. Boom! In an instant, the entire demon-sealing gorge seemed to shake. A sea of fire suddenly appeared in the sky. Lin Tian stared at the sky closely. He only felt that the sea of fire was extremely dazzling. The flames seemed to be condensed from the killing sword aura. He could clearly see the sharp killing swords nurtured in the sea of fire. It was as if they were going to pierce the clouds, no, the sky. Staring at this sword, Lin Tian was shocked. Was this really a move of the flight realm? Did you see it clearly? An old drunkard asked. Lin Tian collected his thoughts and took a deep breath before nodding. An old drunkard had taken dozens of breaths to perform that move because an old drunkard had demonstrated it for him 10 times in a row from slow to fast before finally performing the move. Having seen it 10 times in a row, he naturally remembered it very clearly. The 10th form. I named it Sea of Fire, but it's just a name, so it doesn't matter. An old drunkard looked at Lin Tian and narrowed his eyes. He said, "This move is indeed very powerful. But kid, even if you learn this move, you must remember not to use it rashly before you reach the flight realm. Spiritual ether won't be able to keep up." Lin Tian Wei was shocked. The restrictions are that great? An old drunkard gave Lin Tianyi another slap. The 9 styles of the burning sun are martial arts of the flight realm. The so-called flight realm martial arts were originally meant for flight realm experts to cultivate. The 10th form of the sword surpasses the previous 9 sword styles. Naturally, the requirements are very high. Do you think you can use it casually? If that were really the case, wouldn't a body-refining cultivator be able to kill a cultivator with the sea of consciousness? Lin Tianyi was stunned. After thinking about it, an old drunkard did make a lot of sense. Chapter 266. Reading on mobile phone. Lin Tian was indeed surprised. Logically speaking, even if an old drunkard was stronger than the supreme elder of the 100 Refinements Workshop, it was impossible for him to not feel any vital energy fluctuation. At least, during the battle, some aura would leak out. However, he could not feel an old drunkard's aura at all these days. Pin, book, net, because... An old drunkard squinted his eyes and then laughed. "You're too weak." 3 black lines appeared on Lin Tian's forehead. This old guy. Oh yes, there's one more thing that I want to mention to you. An old drunkard looked at Lin Tian and said, "The space-time portal from the first heaven to the second heaven is also in the Demon Burial Valley." What? Lin Tianyi was shocked. He did not know where the space-time portal to the second heaven was. He did not expect it to be in the Demon Burial Valley. The space-time portal is located in the deepest part of the Demon Burial Valley. With your current cultivation, don't go there. It's very dangerous. An old drunkard warned. Lin Tian's eyes flashed. Could he cross the space-time portal to the second heaven? Seeing Lin Tian's expression, an old drunkard slapped him directly. "Boy, I told you not to go there." Lin Tian was speechless. Was it so obvious? Speaking of which, you said that the portal could be passed by the Sea of Consciousness realm in the past, right? Lin Tian asked. That was before. The old drunkard glanced at Lin Tian. In short, don't think about trying your luck. I personally feel that you should obediently accumulate strength in this heavenly domain and wait until you're a little stronger before going to the second heavenly domain. Otherwise, you'll just be bullied there. The environment in the second heavenly domain is not as good as the first heavenly domain. You know what the second heaven is like? Lin Tian curled his lips. You're talking as if you've been there before. Brat, how can you talk to your dear master like that? You're becoming less and less cute. An old drunkard gulped down a mouthful of wine and said, "What's the saying again?" That's right. Even if you haven't eaten pork, haven't you seen a pig run? Your master am proficient in both civil and martial arts. I have read all 3,000 ancient books and I know a lot of things. Lin Tian. All right, the Demon Burial Valley will open in about 5 days. The sect will probably ask you to head out of the Demon Burial Valley 1 or 2 days earlier. An old drunkard said, so, for the next few days, you don't need to practice. You need to conserve your energy and do some proper rest and relaxation. This is also very important for cultivation. Isn't resting for a few days too much? You can't slack off on your cultivation. Lin Tiandao. Remember, everything in the world is the same. When things reach an extreme, they will reverse. An old drunkard said seriously. And to be honest, your cultivation has improved a bit too quickly during this period of time. Don't think about cultivating for the time being. Rest well for the next few days. Lin Tian muttered to himself. Indeed, his cultivation had improved a bit too quickly recently. All right, let's go back. An old drunkard said. Lin Tianwei stared blankly. What about you? An old drunkard laughed and slowly rose into the air. With a whoosh, he shot into the distance, leaving only his laughter echoing in Lin Tian's ears. Your master will continue to travel the mortal world. All right, help me pass the 10-sword move to the sect. An old drunkard's voice was still lingering in Lin Tian's ears when his figure had already completely disappeared. Lin Tianyi was speechless. This old man was really carefree. Shaking his head, Lin Tian took out the inner soul sword and used the weapon control technique. Soon, he left the Demon Sealing Valley. After returning to the sect, the first thing he did was to ask a deacon to find the Burning Sun sect master. Then, he wrote down an old drunkard's self-created 10th sword move in the form of a jade slip and handed it to the Burning Sun sect master. He was still unable to practice the 10th sword move. The Burning Sun sect master and several elders were so excited that their eyes almost popped out. The 10th sword move. The 10th sword move. Tu Ming kept rubbing his hands. Several elders took the jade slip from the Burning Sun sect master, as if it was a treasure. They gathered together and studied it seriously. Then in just a few dozen breaths, several airborne realm powerhouses appeared to be even more excited and could not help but tremble. Luo Yu said, with this 10th sword move, I'm afraid it's not inferior to the 100 Refinements secret technique of the 100 Refinements workshop. No, it's even stronger. Yang Xiao said. A few days ago, Yang Xiao invited a 6th-tier array manipulator from outside, who had already repaired the heart of the protective formation. At this time, several elders could be said to be extremely excited. By the way, where is senior brother? The Burning Sun sect master asked. Well, Lin Tian was embarrassed and said he went to travel the world. Everyone was speechless. Forget it. That guy finally came back for once and untied the knot in the Supreme Elder's heart. He also left behind the 10th sword move. Let's not worry about him for the time being. Tu Bei waved his hand, which made Lin Tian feel embarrassed for an old drunkard. Hearing this, several other elders also smiled. The Burning Sun sect master looked at Lin Tian and said seriously, by the way, Lin Tian, you know about the Demon Burial Valley and the trials of the 4 gates, right? Yes, Master has already mentioned it to me. Lin Tian said, I thought so too. Senior brother should have mentioned it to you. The Burning Sun sect master nodded and said, in 3 days, the sect will send some outstanding disciples to the Demon Burial Valley. This time, Elder Tu Bei will lead the team. I think you will go to the Demon Burial Valley, right? Lin Tian nodded. The Demon Burial Valley was a place full of opportunities. Naturally, he would go there. In these 3 days, make some preparations. The Burning Sun sect master smiled. Then, with a wave of his right hand, he took out a small stone ring and said, there are 34 precious swords in this ring. You have mastered a martial technique similar to the 100 Refinements secret technique, so you should need weapons. Take these 34 precious swords. They should be useful to you. Lin Tianyi was shocked. This is too precious, sect master. 34 precious swords. After calculating, it would be at least tens of millions of spirit coins. The Burning Sun sect master shook his head and said, these precious swords were left in the Burning Sun sect by the people of the 100 Refinements workshop. Your master swept them away, so it is normal for him to give them to you. It is not a big deal. Lin Tian hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he still took them. Soon, he would continue to practice the weapon control technique, so he really needed a batch of precious swords. After this, Lin Tian bid farewell to the Burning Sun sect master and the others, and quickly returned to his residence. After returning to his residence, Lin Tian used his true yuan to break open the stone ring given to him by the Burning Sun sect master, and took out the 34 precious swords. He was immediately shocked. These precious swords shone with a cold light. They were all mid-grade precious swords. This is not just tens of millions of spirit coins. It is at least hundreds of millions of spirit coins. Lin Tian thought to himself. Looking at these precious swords, Lin Tian could not wait to practice the weapon control technique. However, after a pause, he dispelled this idea. After all, an old drunkard told him to rest well for the next few days before leaving. Naturally, there was a reason for that. Therefore, Lin Tian put away these precious swords. Rest, rest. After muttering these words, Lin Tian went to wash up and directly fell on the bed. After lying on the bed and completely relaxing, Lin Tian felt waves of tiredness assaulting him. It was also at this time that Lin Tian realized that he had been subconsciously resisting the tiredness all this time, forcibly suppressing this tiredness. Now that he was completely relaxed, the tiredness that had been accumulating all this time swarmed him, as if wanting to swallow him whole. No wonder that old man repeatedly told me to rest well for the next few days. It turns out that he had already seen through this. Lin Tian was secretly shocked. He thought that if this tiredness that had been accumulating suddenly broke out during a life and death battle, the consequences would be unimaginable. After all, during a life and death battle, even the slightest change in the body could lead to a great tragedy. It seems that I have to be a little more careful in the future. After all, my current cultivation is still not very strong. Lin Tian thought to himself. As he thought of this, he quickly fell asleep. The next day, when the sun rose high in the sky, Lin Tian woke up. After washing up a little, Lin Tian walked out of the house. As if he was idle, he lazily walked around the Burning Sun sect. Vicious Lin is here. Why didn't he go to cultivate today? He's actually taking a stroll? That's strange. Many Burning Sun sect disciples stared at him. In the past few days, when they saw Lin Tian basically ran to the cultivation area or to the Demon Ceiling Gorge. Now that they saw Lin Tian actually walking around the Burning Sun sect, it really made many people surprised and puzzled. Lin Tian could hear these people's discussion, but he didn't care. He minded his own business and walked around the Burning Sun sect. Thinking about it, it had been a long time since he was so leisurely. He stood on top of the Burning Sun sect and looked down the mountain. He saw that the trees at the foot of the mountain were very small, like green grass. Not long after, he walked into a small forest on top of the Burning Sun sect. It was quieter inside, so it made him feel a lot more ethereal. Soon a day passed. In the evening, Lin Tian returned to his residence. He didn't do anything and directly went to sleep after washing up. In the next 2 days, he still walked around the Burning Sun sect. This was also the first time he really saw the Burning Sun sect, because he had only been to a few places in the Burning Sun sect for a few months. It was also in these 2 days that he saw the other 3 core disciples of the Burning Sun sect. They were about 23 years old, and their cultivation was at the 6th heavenly layer of the Sea of Knowledge. One of them was even about to reach the 7th heavenly layer of the Sea of Knowledge, emitting a very powerful aura. That Ling Yi is the weakest of the 4 core disciples. Lin Tian shook his head and smiled. Then Lin Tian thought about it. In the other 3 sects, the strongest core disciples should also have a cultivation of the 7th heavenly layer of the Sea of Knowledge. After all, they were all part of the 4 great sects, so the strongest core disciples of each sect shouldn't be much weaker than the Burning Sun sect. Especially the 100 Refinements Workshop, the strongest core disciple of this sect, had definitely reached the 7th heavenly layer of the Sea of Knowledge. In the evening, Lin Tian returned to his residence. He opened the stone ring and prepared some martial fusion rune scrolls of the 9 styles of the Burning Sun. After all, he was going to such a place to train. In the words of an old drunkard, although there were many opportunities, there were more dangers than opportunities. Therefore, before going to the Demon Burial Valley, it was necessary to make some preparations. Soon, the darkness dispersed, and 3 days had passed. Dawn! In the morning, a loud and clear bell rang in the Burning Sun Hall, summoning all the outstanding disciples of the Burning Sun sect to gather in front of the Burning Sun Hall. On this day, all the disciples of the Burning Sun sect who had reached the 8th heavenly layer of the divine range and above would be led by Tu Ming to the Demon Burial Valley to participate in the annual 4 Great Sects training. Chapter 267. Reading with a mobile phone. The Demon Burial Valley was an ancient relic in the First Heaven region. It was a huge and chaotic battlefield. Every year, it would attract countless experts to go there to train themselves. Books. Most importantly, there were countless opportunities and precious treasures in the primordial ruins. It could be said that one could find a precious weapon in the Demon Burial Valley, even if they fell down. We can finally enter the Demon Burial Valley. Why are you so excited? Are you ready? It's very dangerous inside. Of course. After we enter, let's work together and divide the things we find equally. Okay. It was the end of spring. The Burning Sun sect was led by Tu Ming, and they were heading towards the Demon Burial Valley at an extremely fast speed. There were about a few hundred people in the sect. This time, there were only about 100 people who could enter the Demon Burial Valley. After all, the Burning Sun sect could not let all of its disciples go to the Demon Burial Valley. In that case, the sect would be empty. Lin Tian's eyes flashed with a glint from time to time. He was secretly thinking about what the Demon Burial Valley would be like. Kid, are you looking forward to it? Tu Ming moved closer. Lin Tian did not hide and said, I am indeed looking forward to it. After all, it's such a place. He was a little interested in the opportunities and treasures in the Demon Burial Valley, but what he really cared about was the space-time portal in the depths of the Demon Burial Valley. Through the space-time portal, he could go from the first heaven domain to the second heaven domain. If he wanted to become stronger, he had to enter the second heaven domain. I believe you'll be able to gain a lot in there. Tu Bei said. The leaders of the Burning Sun sect were very optimistic about Lin Tian. Not only was Lin Tian the disciple of an old drunkard, but Lin Tian's talent was absolutely monstrous. Thank you for your kind words, Elder. Lin Tian Ondao said. Tu Ming laughed my ass. Kid, you're so pretentious. The speed of the Burning Sun sect was very fast. In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. 2 days later, the group entered an old forest. Gradually, a hazy fog appeared in front of them. The fog was dark gray, and the closer they got to the front, the thicker the fog became. In the end, they could only see things within 5 feet in front of them. Stop! Tu Ming shouted. Lin Tian stopped in his tracks and looked ahead. Not far away, there was already a crowd of people, densely packed together. Most of them are loose cultivators. Tu Miao said to Lin Tiandao, some ordinary rogue cultivators are nothing. However, there are often array manipulators among them. You must be careful of these people. They have many strange tricks up their sleeves. Lin Tian. He blushed with shame. He naturally knew this because he himself was a Tier 4 array manipulator. At this time, the group of people in front of them naturally noticed that someone had arrived, and all of them looked over. It's the Burning Sun sect. More than 100 people, and there's even a Zephyr realm expert. Sure enough, a big sect is different. If only I could enter a sect to cultivate, that would be great. Stop dreaming. We should think about how to find some treasures in the Demon Burial Valley to improve our strength. The Burning Sun sect is not easy to enter. That's true. Many loose cultivators discussed. Lin Tian looked further ahead and saw that everyone was looking in that direction. However, that place was filled with dense miasma, and it was impossible to see through it. He frowned, and specks of light appeared between his eyebrows. His tyrannical divine sense instantly spread out, rushing toward the thick fog in front of him, wanting to explore the situation. His divine sense was invisible and colorless, and it quickly merged into the fog in front of him. However, in the next moment, Lin Tian suddenly trembled. After his divine sense entered the thick fog, it was silently swallowed by an invisible force. Kid, you released your divine sense? Tu Bei noticed Lin Tian's reaction and guessed something. He said in a deep voice, "Don't act recklessly. This fog is very strange. It can swallow all kinds of power, including divine sense and true yuan." Lin Tian nodded, but he was still a little confused. What is this thing? I don't know. This thing has always been there. Just ignore it. After a while, it will disperse and open up a gap. Tu Bei said. Lin Tian nodded and quietly stood in place. At this time, a voice came from not far away. A group of people from the Seven Mysteries Pavilion had arrived. The person in the lead was naturally an airborne realm expert, an elder of the Seven Mysteries Pavilion. Behind this airborne realm expert stood four youths. Lin Tianyi saw an acquaintance among them. It was Yi Zhengshang's disciple, Di Wenhong. Lin Tiantan glanced at Di Wenhong and smiled indifferently. Whoosh! In this old forest, a cold wind blew past, rolling up pieces of withered yellow leaves. Perhaps it was because of the strange fog here, but although this was an old forest, most of the trees were bare. Even if there were leaves, almost all of them were withered and yellow. It was rare to see a few green leaves. Not long after, a group of people from the 100 Refinements Workshop arrived. There were about 200 people. Lin Tian looked over there and saw that the person in the lead was an unfamiliar face. His cultivation was in the airborne realm. Seeing this person, Lin Tian couldn't help but sneer in his heart. Not long ago, the Supreme Elder of the 100 Refinements Workshop and the owner of the 100 Refinements Workshop led 3 elders to the Burning Sun sect. In the end, Mu Hong was killed, and the owner of the 100 Refinements Workshop and the other 2 elders had an arm cut off by an old drunkard. Thinking about it, those people didn't have the face to come here, and it was impossible for the Supreme Elder of the 100 Refinements Workshop to personally lead the team. Then, this person should be the elder who stayed in the 100 Refinements Workshop before. It's the 100 Refinements Workshop, the sect that is known as the most powerful. So many people have come, and they all look like experts. Nonsense. How many people in the sect aren't powerful? Do you see that purple-clothed young man at the front? His name is Guo Xiaoming. It is said that he is only 20 years old, but he has already reached the 7th level of the Sea of Consciousness. He can control 21 weapons at the same time. He is most likely to be the next owner of the 100 Refinements Workshop. Is that true? He can reach the 7th level of the Sea of Consciousness at the age of 20. Of course it's true. Many people were discussing. Lin Tian looked over. There was indeed a purple-clothed young man among the people of the 100 Refinements Workshop, staring at this person. Lin Tian frowned slightly. The other party's aura was very powerful. He vaguely felt that the other party's cultivation was not only at the 7th level of the Sea of Consciousness. Suddenly, a burst of fragrance floated in the air. Lin Tian tilted his head and saw a group of women walking over on a small path. These women were all wearing tight white dresses, and all of them had extraordinary temperaments. Led by an old woman, they soon came close. Valley of the Harp, someone shouted. Compared to the Burning Sun sect, the 100 Refinements Workshop, and the 7 Mysteries Pavilion, the Valley of the Harp only had 30 people here. Their lineup was not strong. However, at this moment, the disciples of the Valley of the Harp attracted the attention of the majority of the people. There was no other way. The disciples of the Valley of the Harp were all young women with extraordinary beauty. Naturally, they were very eye-catching. Lin Tian looked over and saw Ji Yu at the front of the crowd. On the other side, Ji Yu naturally noticed Lin Tian and waved at Lin Tian. Humph! A cold voice sounded, bringing with it a trace of coldness. Among the disciples of the Valley of the Harp, Xun Yan's expression was very ugly. She coldly glanced at Lin Tian and Ji Yu. The fog has dispersed. Suddenly, such a voice sounded, and the nearby cultivators immediately burst into an uproar. Lin Tian looked ahead, and sure enough, he saw that the thick fog was beginning to swirl, as if a strange tornado was being born within it. Soon, a small hole appeared in front of him. An extremely decayed and ancient aura was emitted from it, causing him to involuntarily feel a chill. Finally, it's open, someone said excitedly. In front of him, the small hole that appeared first slowly became bigger. Soon, it formed a tunnel with a diameter of about 10 feet. Lin Tian looked at the hole, and his eyes suddenly narrowed. He saw that inside the hole was a dark and damp land. He did not know why, but from afar, he felt that the land in that space was somewhat dark red. That feeling was as if it was dyed red by blood. Just as this feeling appeared, Lin Tian trembled. "It's really evil," he muttered. "Let's go," someone shouted. Suddenly, in front of him, the crowd swarmed toward the open tunnel. In the blink of an eye, the open tunnel was blocked by the crowd. Many people used all their strength to squeeze in. The people in front hurry up. "What the hell are you doing?" "Damn it, slow down." The people in front, "Are you *king looking at the scenery? Get in. Don't block the way." Many people cursed. Lin Tian was somewhat speechless. He silently watched these people scramble. In the other three places, the people from the Burning Sun sect, the Seven Mysteries Pavilion, and the Valley of the Harp quietly stood in place. Only when all the rogue cultivators had entered did the people from these sects move. They methodically walked toward the Demon Burial Valley. After entering, "Be careful," Tu Ming said to Lin Tian. "I know." Lin Tian nodded. Following behind the people from the Burning Sun sect, Lin Tian walked into the Demon Burial Valley. However, after taking 3 steps, he suddenly stopped and turned around to look not far away. In that place, the elder of the 100 Refinements Workshop was staring at Lin Tianling with a smile. When he suddenly saw Lin Tian looking over, his expression changed slightly. It seemed that he did not expect Lin Tian's spiritual sense to be so powerful. Lin Tianling smiled and did not say anything. He turned around and continued to walk toward the Demon Burial Valley. The elder of the 100 Refinements Workshop's face suddenly darkened. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Insolence. Soon, Lin Tian stepped into the empty tunnel that appeared in the thick fog and entered the Demon Burial Valley. As far as the eye could see, what entered his field of vision was an extremely vast expanse of land. There were barren mountain ranges, abandoned old forests, and numerous sunken valleys. He even heard the gurgling sound of flowing water coming from afar. Is this the chaotic battlefield of the ancient times? It's like a small world. Chapter 268. Reading on the phone. The sheer size of the Demon Burial Valley surprised Lin Tian. Calling this place a valley didn't feel right to Lin Tian. This place was far too large, and it didn't feel like a valley or a canyon at all. Please search Tastebook YinNet to see the most complete. The Demon Burial Valley. Shaking his head, Lin Tian began to walk forward. Whoosh! Gusts of wind blew through the Demon Burial Valley, making it very cold. Lin Tian stepped onto the damp ground. Looking down, he saw that the soil was the same as it was on the outside. It was a dark red color, and it looked a little creepy. Looking up at the sky, Lin Tian couldn't see anything other than the thick clouds. In short, this place was very stifling. About 15 minutes later, Lin Tian walked a good distance away from the Demon Burial Valley. Not too far away, he could hear the roars of soul beasts. It was also at this time that he stopped and turned around to look behind him. A group of people was quickly approaching him. In the blink of an eye, the group of people came to a stop about 10 meters away from Lin Tian. There were 2 young men leading the group. Of the 2 young men, Lin Tian recognized one of them. It was Mu Hong's disciple, Bai Yunfei. The other person wore gray robes and had a stronger aura than Bai Yunfei. He was clearly a core disciple of the 100 Refinements Workshop. Bai Yunfei's face darkened at the sight of Lin Tian standing in front of him. "You were waiting for us here? What do you think?" Lin Tian replied. An old drunkard's 10 days of training hadn't made any progress in his cultivation, but his soul force and combat prowess had improved significantly. When he first entered the Demon Burial Valley, he could sense several auras following behind him. Thinking back to the sneer of the elder from the 100 Refinements Workshop, Bai Yunfei knew what was going on. Bai Yunfei's expression darkened. Insolent beast. Bai Yunfei stared at Lin Tian with a menacing glare. Not too long ago, Bai Yunfei had gone to the Burning Sun sect to ask for a hostage, but he had been defeated by Lin Tian. Not too long after that, his master Mu Hong had died at the hands of Lin Tian's master. This made Bai Yunfei want to kill Lin Tian even more. It seems that you hate me. Lin Tian smiled. Bai Yunfei's eyes were filled with anger. He had been defeated by Lin Tian, and his master had been killed by Lin Tian's master. How could he not hate him? Next to him, the gray-robed youth shook his head and smiled. Oh, Bai Yunfei, you really can't keep your composure. Yuanjue, don't forget. Although your master didn't die, one of his arms was chopped off by his master. Bai Yunfei said. Yuanjue's face sank, but he quickly recovered. It's better than being killed. You! Bai Yunfei looked furious. Lin Tianan looked at this scene indifferently and could not help shaking his head. It seemed that the two of them did not have a good relationship. He looked at the two of them and said, if you want to quarrel, do it in hell later. Don't waste my time. As he spoke, he strode towards the group of people. Yuanjue narrowed his eyes and said, Bai Yunfei, you were right about one thing. You're really arrogant. Suppress him. Bai Yunfei said coldly. In an instant, except for Yuanjue, the several dozen people who came with him rushed out together and pulled out their swords and sabers. More than half of these people were in the sea of consciousness stage. For a moment, the sound of swords and sabers reverberated and a murderous aura rolled up. With a calm expression, Lin Tian walked into the crowd quickly. Facing these several dozen people, he seemed very calm. He swatted away the weapons that were coming at him and sent a person flying with a wave of his hand. As this person was sent flying, he knocked down a group of people behind him. He lifted his leg and sent a person who was close to him flying with a kick. I'll give you a chance. If you leave now, I won't kill you. If you attack me again, don't blame me for being merciless. He said indifferently. Kill. A voice rang out. The several dozen people rushed over, but none of them stopped. These people were not weak. How could they be afraid of fighting? Lin Tian shook his head. What a pity! Clang! A sword sound rang out. In an instant, hundreds of swords appeared. Shocking Wind sword. Puff! 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 Blood splattered as figures fell down one after another. Shocking Wind sword was only one of the moves of the body refining stage. Its power was not very strong, but it also depended on who was using it. Now, Lin Tian, with the cultivation of the fourth sky of consciousness stage, could use this sword move. Its power was naturally very terrifying. He killed 13 people with one move. This, in an instant, the rest of the people who besieged him were shocked. Although the 13 people who were killed were only in the divine vein stage, it was still very terrifying to be able to do this with one move. Don't panic. Don't forget the Elder's order. Catch them. Bai Yunfei said coldly. Bai Yunfei was a core disciple of the 100 Refinements Workshop. His status was very high. Hearing Bai Yunfei's words, the remaining 20 or so people immediately moved again. They all displayed powerful martial techniques, and their vigorous true essence immediately surged. Lin Tian raised the long sword in his hand. Lightning flashed, and he still swung his sword. Puff! 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 Anyone who got close to him, without exception, was beheaded. In an instant, only 11 people were left out of the dozens of cultivators who had rushed over. At this moment, these 11 people's faces were full of horror. They looked at Lin Tian as if they were looking at a monster. With just 2 moves, more than half of them were killed. How terrifying was this combat strength? There was no way to resist at all. Staring at Lin Tian, the 11 people could not help but retreat. The 2 swords had deeply intimidated everyone. Bastards! Why are you retreating? Bai Yunfei shouted. But, Senior Bai, someone trembled. Lin Tian's 2 swings of his sword completely destroyed these people's fighting spirit. The 11 people trembled and did not dare to continue fighting. At this moment, Lin Tian raised the long sword in his hand again. I gave you a chance. Lin Tian never showed mercy to his enemies. even if the other party no longer had any fighting spirit. Clang! The light of thunder and fire flickered. 11 sword lights shot out in a straight line and entered the 11 people's throats. In the blink of an eye, except for Bai Yunfei and Yuan Zhua, the other dozens of people were all killed. I'm very curious. Lin Tian looked at Bai Yunfei and Yuan Zhua, saying, if your 100 Refinements Workshop wants to deal with me, shouldn't you send some experts? For example, your 100 Refinements Workshop's Guo Xiaoming, sending some weak people to their deaths? Could it be that the elders of your 100 Refinements Workshop are all idiots with mental problems? When he was still outside the Demon Burial Valley, Lin Tian had seen the people of the 100 Refinements Workshop from afar. In this school, Guo Xiaoming was indeed very strong and could give him pressure. Hearing this, Bai Yunfei and Yuan Zhua's faces darkened. You think that the two of us are also weak? Yuan Zhua said coldly. Bai Yunfei also stared coldly at Lin Tian with a cold light in his eyes. Sorry, the two of you are indeed not very strong. At most, you're a little stronger than those people earlier. Lin Tian on Dao. The moment he said that, Bai Yunfei and Yuan Zhua's faces turned even colder. So arrogant at such a young age. You really need to be taught a lesson. Yuan Zhua took a step forward and his aura changed. His peak 5th heavenly layer cultivation was instantly revealed. I'll let you see how strong I am. Bai Yunfei said in a deep voice. Yuan Zhua, be careful. Although he is arrogant, his strength is indeed very terrifying. Most importantly, he secretly learned my 100 Refinements Workshop's 100 Refinements secret technique. He can control 15 treasure swords at the same time. So what? In the end, he just secretly learned it and knows some superficial knowledge. Bai Yunfei, you lost to him once and left a shadow in your heart, right? Yuan Zhua's aura became even stronger. He took another step toward Lin Tian and said coldly, besides, what can you do with your 4th heavenly layer cultivation? Lin Tian looked at Yuan Zhua indifferently. He could not help but want to laugh. The corners of his mouth rose slightly. His feet swayed, and he arrived in front of Yuan Zhua in an instant. Yuan Zhua's face changed immediately. You pa! With a resounding slap, Yuan Zhua was sent flying. I can slap you directly. Lin Tian stood in place and looked calmly at Yuan Zhua, who was sent flying. Then, I'll tell you what the so-called strength is. After saying that, his figure swayed again, and he arrived in front of Yuan Zhua in an instant. He kicked Yuan Zhua's abdomen. The so-called strength is to fight against opponents of a higher level and crush them. With a bang, Yuan Zhua was sent flying again. Clang! Behind him, the sound of a sword rang out. Bai Yunfei slashed with his sword. Lin Tian did not even turn his head. Only a white lotus floated out. It floated behind him and entered Bai Yunfei's head. Ah! Bai Yunfei screamed immediately. The sword in his hand fell to the ground, and his body twitched nonstop. Yuan Zhua stood up with a hand on his chest. He looked at the scene in disbelief. What did you do just now? Just now, he did not see Lin Tian attacked Bai Yunfei at all. However, Bai Yunfei suddenly screamed. This scene was so strange that he could not help but feel a chill run down his spine. Do you think I'll tell you? Lin Tian Dao. After saying that, he swung his sword, and the lightning sword went straight for Yuan Zhua. Yuan Zhua was furious. He moved his body and dodged quickly. I'll chop off your limbs. I'll bring you to the elders. Yuan Zhua said coldly. After saying that, a clanging sound was heard. In an instant, 13 swords appeared and clanged. Almost at the same time, Bai Yunfei came to his senses. His eyes were blood red. He used the 100 Refinements technique and called out 13 swords. Each of them was shining with cold killing light. Clang! Clang! The two of them attacked at the same time, attacking Lin Tian from the left and right. 26 swords vibrated at the same time, sealing off the space in all directions. This scene was really quite frightening. Lin Tian raised the corners of his mouth. With a turn of the Heart Spirit sword, he swung it slowly and powerfully. Tornado! 2 indifferent words came out. In an instant, with Lin Tian as the center, More than 10 violent tornadoes with flames appeared. The air was hissing. In an instant, they knocked the 26 swords away. At the same time, Lin Tian disappeared from where he was. He flashed through the smoke and dust in the sky. He pierced the sword in his hand directly into Yuan Zhua's heart. See? This is real strength. Chapter 269. Reading with a mobile phone. Blood flowed down from his chest. Yuan Zhua felt a heart-wrenching pain and looked at Lin Tian in disbelief. Staring at Lin Tian at such a close distance. Yuan Zhua's mouth was bleeding and his eyes were dimming. Lin Tian's expression was indifferent. He pulled out his sword and kicked Yuan Zhua away. Yuan Zhua struggled for a while, but soon stopped moving. When the heart was pierced, even an expert of the Zephyr stage would die, let alone a cultivator of the Sea of Consciousness stage. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at Bai Yunfei. Bai Yunfei's face was pale. Seeing Lin Tian looking at him, he could not help but take a few steps back. You? In just a moment, Yuan Zhua, who was at the peak of the 5th celestial layer of the Sea of Consciousness, was killed by Lin Tian. Lin Tian strode forward step by step. Bai Yunfei hurriedly used the 100 refinements. The 13 swords clanged and flew towards Lin Tian. Now that Bai Yunfei had reached the 5th celestial layer of the Sea of Consciousness, his 100 refinements had improved, and he could control the weapons of the 13 schools at the same time. You were no match for me in the past. Now, it's even more impossible. Lin Tian said indifferently. With a flash, he used the 4th sword of the incinerating sun and swept away all of Bai Yunfei's weapons. With a bang, he came in front of Bai Yunfei and kicked him away. Blood flowed out of Bai Yunfei's mouth, and his face was extremely ugly. 7 shadows, 1 kill. Bai Yunfei roared. In an instant, 7 shadows appeared around him and surrounded Lin Tian. Lin Tian looked around. Suddenly, his expression changed, and he looked into the distance. There a figure was running away at an extremely fast speed. It was Bai Yunfei. He smiled coldly and used the yin-yang line to catch up with Bai Yunfei in an instant. He slashed his sword diagonally. You used this move to kill me in the past. Now, you're using this move to escape. Don't you think it's interesting? Bai Yunfei dodged the sword in a sorry state, and his expression became somewhat stiff. Originally, he had come with Yuan Zhua to suppress Lin Tian. However, he never expected that Lin Tian had become so terrifying that he could kill Yuan Zhua with a single strike. Yuan Zhua was slightly stronger than him, but even Yuan Zhua was easily killed. If he stayed behind, he would definitely die. Therefore, after he executed the 7 shadows, 1 kill, his original body immediately fled. However, he did not expect Lin Tian to stop him instantly. What do you want? Staring at Lin Tian, Bai Yunfei's face seemed somewhat pale. What do I want? What an interesting topic. You came here to deal with me, and now you're asking me what I want. Lin Tian's expression was calm. Suddenly, he moved again, slapping Bai Yunfei across the face. With a bang, Bai Yunfei was pressed to the ground, causing several small cracks to appear on the ground. The sound of bones breaking rang out. Bai Yunfei immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Lin Tian withdrew his right hand and pointed his sword at Bai Yunfei. Bai Yunfei did not dare to move at all. Tell me, how does your 100 Refinements Workshop plan to deal with me? Lin Tian said. He pointed the tip of his sword at Bai Yunfei's chest and said, I suggest that you don't make me wait for too long. Furthermore, don't keep silent. Otherwise, you will know the consequences very well. I'm still rather good at some cruel methods. Bai Yunfei trembled. He stared at the tip of Lin Tian's sword at his chest and immediately revealed a terrified expression. Speak. Lin Tian exerted a little force with his right hand. A trace of blood immediately appeared on Bai Yunfei's chest. The fear in Bai Yunfei's eyes immediately grew stronger. He hurriedly said, before the opening of the Demon Burial Valley, the school gave us several core disciples a lot of Baodan, which allowed our cultivation to increase greatly. After we entered the Demon Burial Valley, all of us had to capture you at all costs. Lin Tian narrowed his eyes. Just this. Yes, just this. What's the cultivation of that, Guo Xiaoming? Why didn't the other core disciples come with you? Senior Guo is the strongest person in the school. Now he has already reached the 8th layer of the mindscape. The other person is at the 7th layer. Bai Yunfei trembled. Senior Guo seemed to have discovered something midway and walked in a direction by himself. He thought that if we worked together, we would be able to capture you. What about the other person? Bai Yunfei's expression changed slightly. He seemed to be somewhat hesitant. The other person, Lin Tian, exerted force with his right hand. The blood on Bai Yunfei's chest immediately became thicker, frightening Bai Yunfei to fiercely tremble. The other person heard from Di Wenhong of the 7 Mysteries Pavilion that you have a person in the Valley of the Harp that you like. I think his name is Ji Yu. His cultivation isn't very strong, so he wanted to use that person in the Valley of the Harp to threaten you. He said that directly suppressing you would be too boring, so he wanted to capture someone to threaten you. That would be much more interesting. Bai Yunfei quickly said. Lin Tian's face grew cold. Much more interesting? Senior sure said so. PCHD. Lin Tian's right hand slammed into Bai Yunfei's chest and crushed his heart with the soul sword. You bang! Lin Tian's foot stepped onto Bai Yunfei's face, causing Bai Yunfei's voice to fade away. Withdrawing his foot from Bai Yunfei's face and pulling out the soul sword, Lin Tian looked around the Demon Burial Valley. Ji Yu's current cultivation was indeed not very strong. In the face of a cultivator at the 7th heaven of the Sea of Consciousness, she should not be an opponent. Although he had seen a strong cultivator at the 7th heaven of the Sea of Consciousness in the Zither Valley before, he felt that the people of the Zither Valley would not act together. Moreover, even if they acted together, he was still worried at this time. Ji Yu was one of the most important people to him. After all, now where could she be? Taking Yuan Zhua and Bai Yunfei's stone rings, Lin Tian put away the 20 or so weapons on the ground. Then he flew off in a certain direction. The Demon Burial Valley was shockingly large, and he didn't know where Ji Yu was. But even so, he had to find her. He wanted to be at ease. The air in the Demon Burial Valley was very dark and humid. Lin Tian moved quickly through the valley, and from time to time, he could hear the roar of a soul beast. Roar! A soul beast covered in stone armor leapt out from the ground, its eyes blood red. Lin Tian's eyebrows furrowed. He had read the catalog of soul beasts in the celestial realm, so he could recognize most of the soul beasts. But he couldn't name this soul beast. He hadn't seen it in the catalog before. It didn't take long for him to realize how strong this soul beast was. It was comparable to a 4th layer mindscape cultivator, and the aura it was exuding was very strong. This ferocious beast roared, clearly treating Lin Tian as its prey. A claw swiped over. Get out of my way! Lin Tian wasn't in a good mood. He raised his hand and slashed out a flaming sword, knocking the soul beast to the ground. Without stopping, he left in a flash. His speed was very fast, and soon he had gone around a large area. At this moment, he saw a group of people in front of him. The one leading them was Di Wenhong. Instantly, Lin Tian's eyes turned cold, and he flashed over. The people following Di Wenhong were all disciples of the 7 Mysteries Pavilion, and there were about 20 of them. Among these 20 over people, there were some who had followed Di Wenhong to the Zither Serene Valley. They immediately recognized Lin Tian, causing their expressions to change. At this time, Di Wenhong also noticed Lin Tian. Lin Tian, you bang! Lin Tian was very fast. In a flash, he was in front of Di Wenhong, and with a punch, Di Wenhong fell into the dust. Senior Di, who is it? You dare to sneak attack our 7 Mysteries Pavilion? You're courting death. Some of the 7 Mysteries Pavilion disciples who didn't know Lin Tian were enraged, and they immediately swarmed over. Get out of my way, Lin Tian said coldly. The inner spirit sword appeared in his hand, and a sword wind suddenly appeared. Bang! 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 The dozens of 7 Mysteries Pavilion disciples that rushed forward were sent flying, and their faces changed. Di Wenhong fell to the ground, his face ashen. He used his right hand to support himself as he stood up. Lin Tian's face was cold, and he directly kicked Di Wenhong's face. With a bang, Di Wenhong was sent flying more than 40 feet away, and his teeth mixed with blood floated in the air. Seeing this scene, the expressions of everyone in the surroundings changed. Senior D, how could he? Some people's hearts trembled. There was no doubt about Di Wenhong's strength. He was a core disciple of the Seven Mysteries Pavilion, but now, some of the Seven Mysteries Pavilion disciples saw that the powerful Di Wenhong was sent flying twice in a row, as if he didn't have the ability to fight back. In the distance, Di Wenhong's face changed. He could clearly feel that Lin Tian's strength had greatly increased compared to when he was in the Valley of the Harp. In 10 breaths of time, he was first smashed to the ground by Lin Tian's fist, and then sent flying by Lin Tian's kick. Whether it was Lin Tian's speed or strength, it made him feel a sense of fear. Lin Tian, what are you trying to do? Di Wenhong said in a low voice. Lin Tian's expression was cold. In a flash, he arrived in front of Di Wenhong. His speed was so fast that Di Wenhong's face was filled with shock. With a bang, Lin Tian's kick landed on Di Wenhong's chest. With a crack, the sound of ribs breaking could be heard. The sword in Lin Tian's hand fell on Di Wenhong's neck. Where did that person from the 100 Refinements workshop go? Di Wenhong trembled. You mean? Pooh. Lin Tianyi raised his long sword and directly cut off one of Di Wenhong's arms. Ah! Di Wenhong screamed, his face twisted into a ball. Not far away, the Seven Mysteries Pavilion disciples saw this scene and suddenly felt a chill down their backs. Their eyes were filled with fear. Senior Brother Di's hand, some people were shocked. Hearing Di Wenhong's screams, Lin Tian became even more impatient. He once again stomped on Di Wenhong's chest, breaking a few more ribs. Don't play dumb with me. You purposely revealed GU's matter to that person from the 100 Refinements workshop just to take revenge on me. Speak, where did that person go? Staring at Di Wenhong, Lin Tian's eyes were very cold. He hated being bullied, and he hated it even more when people hurt or threatened his important people. With one of his arms cut off, Di Wenhong felt a heart-wrenching pain. At this time, facing Lin Tian's eyes that were filled with killing intent, he felt his soul tremble. He suddenly regretted mentioning GU's matter to that person from the 100 Refinements workshop. His lips trembled as he said, Li Yu, that person from the 100 Refinements workshop, went east. I heard that GU and 2 other Zither Serene Valley disciples are together. It seems that they are heading east. Lin Tian looked in the direction Di Wenhong spoke of. His eyes became incomparably cold, and a chill quickly spread out. Feeling this cold aura, the fear in Di Wenhong's eyes became more and more intense. He said in a trembling voice, I have already told you everything I know. You let go. Pooh. Chapter 270. Reading on a mobile phone. After killing Di Wenhong, Lin Tian didn't stay any longer. He directly stepped on the Yin Yang Ho and quickly headed toward the east of the Demon Burial Valley. Only the people of the Seven Mysteries Pavilion were left standing where they were with terrified expressions as they stared at Di Wenhong's corpse. Senior Brother was... How could this be? Senior Brother has a 5th firmament spiritual C and is one of the 4 strongest disciples of the Seven Mysteries Pavilion. That person is... Someone's heart palpitated. Di Wenhong was clearly a core disciple of the sect with a 5th firmament spiritual C, but he was killed so easily. Among these people, a few who had seen Lin Tian's ferocious power before were even more terrified and could not help but tremble. In an instant, everyone in the Seven Mysteries Pavilion felt their hearts tremble. Lin Tian was already very far away. His speed was extremely fast, and his eyes were very cold. 100 Refinements workshop, Li Yu. With a whoosh, he sped up even more. In the Demon Burial Valley, in front of a dark old forest, 3 women stood together. They were the disciples of the Valley of the Harp. They were Lu Jie, Jiyu, and Su Qing. Su Qing had broken through to the spiritual sea domain not long ago and had followed along. At this moment, Lu Jie and Su Qing were frowning as they looked at a person in front of them. It was a skinny man dressed in white and holding a folding fan in his hand. At first glance, he looked like a scholar. "Li Yu, why are you stopping us?" Lu Jie said. Su Qing stared at Li Yu with fear in her eyes. Ji Yu asked softly, "Senior Sister Su, who is this Li Yu?" "He's a core disciple of the 100 Refinements Workshop. He's very powerful. Among the cultivators of the same generation in the 4 great sects, he can be ranked in the top 3. Su Qing said, "This person is not a good person. Don't be fooled by his gentle appearance. He's actually a beast through and through. He has harmed many women in the past, but because he's powerful, no one dares to do anything to him. The 100 Refinements Workshop also doesn't care." Hearing this, Ji Yu immediately frowned. "Of course there's a reason for stopping us." Li Yu waved the folding fan in his hand and narrowed his eyes. Then his gaze landed directly on Ji Yu. His eyes flashed. "Not bad. Not bad indeed. I heard from Di Wenhong that there's a new girl with astonishing beauty in the Valley of the Harp. Her name is Ji Yu. So that must be you, right?" Ji Yu frowned. "What's the matter?" Li Yu waved the folding fan in his hand and stared straight at Ji Yu. He sized him up and nodded repeatedly. "Lin Tian of the Burning Sun sect really has good taste. Interesting, interesting. Miss Ji, this Li would like to ask you to come with me. How should I put it? I want to use you as a hostage to threaten that Lin Tian and then capture him." "Well, even though 2 of my junior brothers have joined forces to capture him, I suspect that those 2 won't succeed so easily. How about it? Come with me. When I use you to threaten him, I'm sure you'll find the process very interesting." Li Yu directly stated his intentions. He was calm and unhurried. After a pause, he smiled and said, "In addition, Miss Ji, you can rest assured that this one has a tender heart for the fairer sex. Although I've heard that Miss Ji has an intimate relationship with that Lin Tian, this one won't hurt you. I just want to add a bit of fun to the process of capturing that Lin Tian. After all, directly suppressing him would be too boring. On the other hand, when I take you as a hostage who is very important to him and then threaten him to do something he doesn't want to do, watching him struggle in pain and seeing his eyes filled with hatred for me, that feeling will be different. It will definitely be very interesting." "What did you say?" Lu Jie and Su Qing's faces were cold, and their eyes were filled with anger. Li Yu smiled and looked at Ji Yu, saying, "That's right. After this one is played with that Lin Tian, I'll cut off his limbs. At that time, would Miss Ji be willing to travel under the moon with this one? Speaking of which, this one has had the pleasure of many young girls, but it's the first time I've seen a girl as beautiful as Miss Ji. I really have to thank Di Wenhong of the 7 Mysteries Pavilion." Ji Yu's face darkened. He raised his sword and slashed out. With a clang, the white lotus sword swept out and chopped towards Li Yu. "Your strength is not bad." Li Yu smiled and easily dodged the attack. He stared at Ji Yu again and narrowed his eyes into slits. "It seems that Miss Ji doesn't quite agree with this one suggestion. It's really regrettable. Then this one can only do it myself. I hope that Miss Ji won't resist." After saying that, Li Yu walked towards Ji Yu. Lu Jie coldly said, "Li Yu, don't act recklessly. Ji Yu is the direct disciple of our Valley Master. If you dare to act recklessly, our Valley Master will not let you off." Lu Jie was very clear about Li Yu's strength. His knowledge, was at the 7th heavenly layer, and he also practiced the 100 Refinement secret technique, which was known as the #1 martial technique of the 4 great sects. Even if the 3 of them worked together, they would not be a match for him. Therefore, they could only reveal this identity, hoping to intimidate Li Yu. Li Yu's footsteps paused. For the first time, he slightly frowned. Di Wenhong, the disciple of the Valley of the Harp's Lord, did not tell me this. After a moment, Li Yu's brows relaxed and a smile reappeared on his face. Since she is the disciple of the Valley of the Harp's Lord, then there's no other way. It seems that I can only kill the 2 of you first. As for her, after using her to capture that Lin Tian, then what a pity. Such a beautiful woman. I really can't bring myself to kill her." Shaking his head, Li Yu walked towards the 3 of them. Lu Jie and Su Qing's faces suddenly became very ugly. Although they knew that Li Yu was very crazy and perverted, and his mind was very twisted and sinister, They did not expect it to be to this extent. After they mentioned that the Lord of the Valley of the Harp was Ji Yu's master, not only did this person not give up, he even wanted to kill them all to silence them. Lu Jie said to Ji Yu, "Little junior sister, you go first. Su Qing, and I will stop him." Su Qing also nodded. "Little junior sister, let's go." The two of them were not as strong as Ji Yu's cultivation and strength, but they thought that they had entered the Valley of the Harp earlier than Ji Yu. As Ji Yu's senior sisters, since they were senior sisters, they naturally had to act like senior sisters. Most importantly, Ji Yu was the direct disciple of the Valley of the Harp's Lord. He was usually very polite and respectful to them. They all liked Ji Yu very much. Moreover, to Su Qing, Lin Tian had saved her life. At this moment, she naturally had to protect Ji Yu. No, Ji Yu shook his head. How could he be willing to leave alone? Clap, clap, clap. Li Yu clapped his hands. What a touching camaraderie. However, the three of you don't have to do this because none of you can leave. With a calm smile, Li Yu walked towards the three of them step by step. Ji Yu's face was cold. Beside him, the white lotus sword swept out. Lu Jie and Su Qing stood on his left and right, each holding a sword and facing Li Yu. Clang! At this moment, an ear-piercing sound of a sword rang out. A cold sword rushed over from the distance and landed directly at Li Yu's feet. 10 feet away, a figure appeared. In a few moments, he had arrived in front of the three women. Seeing the newcomer, Ji Yu immediately revealed a joyful expression. Lin Tian, Lu Jie, and Su Qing looked up. Both were moved. Lin Tian, senior brother Lin. Lu Jie and Su Qing had seen Lin Tian's strength with their own eyes. In the Valley of the Harp, he had suppressed Di, Wen Hong, and Shun Yin, who were at the 5th celestial layer of Knowledge Sea. His battle strength could be said to be extremely shocking. Now that Lin Tian had arrived at this time, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that Ji Yu was fine, Lin Tian looked at Lu Jie and Su Qing. "Are the two of you okay?" "We're fine." Lu Jie shook her head. Su Qing pointed at Li Yu and said angrily, "Senior brother Lin, that pervert wanted to kidnap junior sister to threaten you." After senior sister Lu said that junior sister was the Valley Master's disciple, this pervert wanted to kill us and junior sister to silence us. Lin Tian turned around and looked at Li Yu. "You're Lin Tian?" "As I expected, those two people didn't catch you." Li Yu looked at Lin Tian and shook the folding fan in his hand. He shook his head and said, "It's not good for you to appear in front of me like this because you've disrupted my rhythm. Now, tell me, what should I do?" "First, directly suppress you. After all, you've already appeared in front of me. Second, after crippling you, I'll take Ji Yu away. Then, when you recover and come to me, I'll use Ji Yu to threaten you. Which one do you think is better?" "How about the second one, because it's very interesting." Lin Tian's face was cold as he walked towards Li Yu. "I won't choose either of the two." "Oh?" Li Yu narrowed his eyes. "I didn't give you a third." "Pa." Lin Tian's figure suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of Li Yu in the next moment. He directly slapped Li Yu and sent him flying. Blood floated in the air, along with a striking tooth. Lin Tian pulled out the long sword by his feet, and the blade suddenly burned with blazing flames. "I choose to kill you." Behind him, Lu Jie and Su Qing suddenly widened their eyes. So fast, so strong. The two girls knew that Lin Tian was very strong, but they didn't expect him to be so strong. Li Yu was at the 7th level of the spiritual sea, and his fame had already spread. But now, he was sent flying by Lin Tian with a slap, and even lost a tooth. This scene really shocked the two girls. Not only the two girls, but even Ji Yu was shocked. He became stronger again. Boom! In the distance, a violent surge of true yuan rushed up, and Li Yu stood up from the ground. He reached out to wipe the corner of his mouth, and his hand was stained with dazzling red blood. Li Yu's expression suddenly became gloomy, and 2 cold knives seemed to have appeared in his eyes. "You made me bleed. You made me lose a tooth." A cold aura spread out from Li Yu's body, giving people an extremely oppressive feeling. "Shall you step back a little?" Lin Tian on Dao said. After he finished speaking, he held the long sword in his hand and walked towards Li Yu step by step. As his right hand shook, a loud and clear sword sound reverberated. In an instant, blazing true yuan flames spread from the sword and covered his entire body, causing the air to distort. Ji Yu revealed a shocked expression and then quickly retreated. This is the Burning Sun sect's strongest martial skill, the 9 styles of the Burning Sun. But I've never seen anyone who can use the 9 styles of the Burning Sun to such an extent. He hasn't even used any sword moves, but he can already spread the true yuan flames all over his body. Lu Jie's heart palpitated. She had seen the scene of the Burning Sun sect's strongest core disciple using the 9 styles of the Burning Sun. But compared to the scene now, it was like heaven and earth. Chapter 271. Reading on a mobile phone, blazing true core energy flames surrounded Lin Tian's body, and his overbearing aura spread out in waves, shocking the 3 girls. This aura was indeed powerful. Li Yu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes became extremely sinister. I'll cripple you and leave you with one last breath. Boom! An even more powerful true core energy rushed out from Li Yu's body, and the air was vibrating. Lin Tian held his long sword, and in a flash, he closed in on Li Yu. Clang! As the sword vibrated, flames filled the sky in an instant. He directly used the first stroke of the Yang incinerating sword. In an instant, dozens of flaming sword chi swept out, trapping Li Yu in a triangular formation. Li Yu waved the folding fan in his hand, and a large amount of sword chi was rolled up, shattering all the flaming sword chi. Then, with a swoosh, Li Yu's speed suddenly increased. In a flash, he was in front of Lin Tian and said coldly, "I'll chop off your right hand." So fast. Be careful. Ji Yu and the other 2 girls were shocked. Li Yu, who was at the 7th level of the spiritual sea, was indeed terrifying. The folding fan in Li Yu's hand let out a sword vibration, and it was terrifyingly sharp. In an instant, it cut Lin Tian's arm. However, in the next moment, Li Yu's expression changed, and so did Lu Jie and the rest, because Li Yu's folding fan directly passed through Lin Tian's arm. Su Qing was shocked. This is an illusion. Clang! The clanging of the sword sounded from the other side. Lin Tian's real body appeared, and the cold sword in his hand cut across Li Yu's neck. This attack was a fatal one, and ordinary people would not be able to avoid it. Li Yu took a step back, and a green sword suddenly appeared in his left hand. He stuck close to the ground and raised it horizontally. Clang! The 2 swords collided, and there was a metallic clang. Li Yu blocked Lin Tian's sword, but he took a few steps back. "Didn't you chop off my right hand?" Lin Tian said. As he finished speaking, he held the long sword in his hand and walked calmly toward Li Yu. "It seems that you're very proud of yourself. You're proud just because you forced me to take a few steps back." Li Yu's eyes suddenly became more sinister. Lin Tian was expressionless as he slashed out with his sword. "Who do you think you are? How can I feel proud of forcing you to retreat?" It was a simple sword strike, but it carried a scorching hot flow of flames, causing the air to distort. Its power was very frightening. Li Yu's expression froze. A few veins bulged on his forehead. "Lin Tian, I will make you suffer all kinds of torture and let you know the terrible consequences of offending me," Li Yu said coldly. After saying that, waves of cold aura rushed out from Li Yu's body, causing the temperature to drop significantly. Absolute Sword of 9. Lin Tian, be careful. Apart from the 100 Refinements secret technique, this is the strongest martial technique in the 100 Refinements workshop, Lu Jie and Su Qing reminded. Li Yu shifted his gaze to Lu Jie and Su Qing. His eyes revealed a lustful and sinister light. "You 2 little bitches, after I suppress this brat, I'll definitely pamper you. Then, I'll slowly torture you to death. Bastard. Damn pervert." Lu Jie and Su Qing were furious and couldn't help but curse. Even Ji Yu frowned. His eyes turned cold. Li Yu's gaze fell on Ji Yu. He grinned. Miss G, don't worry. I'll kill you in the end. After all, it's probably difficult to find another beauty like you in this world. Heh. After a pause, Liu suddenly laughed. Oh right, let this Lin Tian watch me kill you with his own eyes. It'll be very interesting. After saying that, Liu laughed maniacally. Clang! The sword roared like a divine dragon. The entire space was surrounded by sword momentum. The long sword in Lin Tian's hand trembled. A terrifying killing intent intertwined, causing Lu Jie and Su Qing to tremble violently. The two ladies stared ahead and suddenly, a terrifying illusion appeared in their minds. Countless corpses and skeletons appeared around Lin Tian. They could clearly see the bloody faces of the corpses struggling in front of them. At this moment, even Li Yu's expression changed slightly. Looks like you've killed a lot of people. With a swoosh, the sound of air breaking rang out. Lin Tian's figure appeared in front of Li Yu. The long sword in his hand slashed down directly. Poof! Blood floated in the air. A clear sword mark appeared on Li Yu's chest. Even his ribs could be seen. You bang! Lin Tian's figure appeared behind Li Yu in an instant. With a kick, Li Yu flew more than 7 feet away. Li Yu was still in the air. He coughed out a mouthful of essence blood. At this moment, an even more terrifying sword momentum rushed up. Lin Tian's entire body was surrounded by flames. He was like a fire god descending to the mortal world. With each step, he left behind an illusion. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Li Yu again and punched out. Bang! This punch landed directly on Li Yu's cheek. Blood floated in the air, accompanied by a few teeth. It was clear and glaring. Lin Tian did not stop. With a swing of his long sword, he slashed towards Li Yu again. Seeing that Lin Tian was approaching rapidly, Li Yu let out an angry roar. A cold aura rushed out of his body. In an instant, a dense blood-red sword radiance appeared beside him. It was chilling and terrifying. With a swoosh, it rushed towards Lin Tian. At the same time, Li Yu steadied himself. With a swing of the folding fan in his hand, he slashed out dozens of arc-shaped sword blades. Lin Tian swung the long sword in his hand. With a swing of the sun-incinerating second sword, everything was shattered. Holding the long sword in his hand, he walked towards Li Yu step by step. There were no emotions on his face. Only his eyes were cold and piercing. Only his murderous intent made one's heart palpitate. Worm, how dare you look at me like that? How dare you injure me repeatedly? Li Yu roared. Lin Tian's figure swayed. With a swing of the sun-incinerating third sword, he slashed out a path of flames. It seemed like he was going to cut the space apart. A monkey jumping up and down. His voice was cold. The violent sun-incinerating sword force rushed towards Li Yu. It seemed like it was going to burn the sky. Kill you! Kill you! Li Yu roared. The cold sword radiance spread. Li Yu's face became hideous and twisted. However, the sword chi that he slashed out was extremely terrifying. The sword radiance was like extreme ice that annihilated the boundless flames. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He took a step forward and performed the sun-incinerating fourth sword without hesitation. Worms! Li Yu roared. The sword radiance became even colder and more terrifying. In the blink of an eye, the two of them collided. The flaming sword radiance and the 9-yin sword collided. One was Yang, and the other was Yin. It was a terrifying scene. Clang! 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 The two figures were very fast. Their long swords collided again and again, sputtering sparks. Such a powerful collision and such a terrifying aura caused quite a few cracks to appear on the surface of the ground. Quite a few boulders were directly shattered during the clash between the two of them, turning into gravel that filled the air. Moreover, at the same time, two powerful quintessential essence fluctuations spread out, causing many of the nearby cultivators to turn pale with fright. They all turned to look in the same direction. What a terrifying aura. Is someone fighting? Who is it? The true essence waves and the sword momentum are too strong. Let's go and take a look. Immediately, many people began to move. Soon, some people came to the periphery of the battle between Lin Tian and Li Yu. When they saw the scene in front of them, their expressions changed. That's Li Yu of the 100 Refinements Workshop. He's the second most powerful person in the 100 Refinements Workshop. It's said that he's ranked in the top 3 among the 4 major sects. Li Yu's fierce reputation had spread out in the 100 Refinements Workshop. Many people knew him. At this time, they were naturally very surprised to see Li Yu fighting with another person. This was because they saw that Li Yu was seriously injured. Blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his chest was dyed red. However, Li Yu's opponent was not injured at all. Then who is the other person? Is he the one who injured Li Yu? He seems to be a disciple of the Burning Sun sect. I saw him outside the Demon Burial Valley. A disciple of the Burning Sun sect? There doesn't seem to be such a person among the 4 core disciples of the Burning Sun sect. There doesn't seem to be such a person. He is just an ordinary disciple of the Burning Sun sect. But how can he be so strong that he can fight with Li Yu? Many people's hearts trembled. At this time, most of the people here were rogue cultivators. Watching the battle between Lin Tian and Li Yu, they were all shocked. Ah! With a roar, Li Yu swung the sword in his hand again and again ferociously. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He displayed the 9 styles of the burning sun, causing flames to fill the sky. Clang! His right hand shook. Along with a ray of sword light, a zhang-long flaming sword slashed down from the sky. Li Yu was at the 7th celestial layer of the knowledge sea. He was very powerful, 3 levels higher than Lin Tian. However, Lin Tian had cultivated with an old drunkard for 10 days. His battle strength, speed, and control of true essence had improved by leaps and bounds. Now, even if he faced an opponent 3 levels higher than him, he still had the strength to fight. Clang! 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 Swords collided with swords. Flames and yin-chi clashed again and again. The terrifying aura shocked many of the spectators. Gradually, more and more people came here. Among them were people from the 4 major sections. That is Lin Tian of the Burning Sun sect. His opponent is, my God, Li Yu of the 100 Refinement Square. That insidious madman. Wait, Li Yu seems to be injured. Isn't Li Yu at the 7th celestial layer of the knowledge sea? And that Lin Tian, it seems to be only at the 4th celestial layer of the knowledge sea. Fighting with a gap of 3 levels? Many people stared. For the people of the 4 major sects, Li Yu is no doubt very terrifying. Not only was his battle strength strong, but his mind was also perverted and insidious. Facing Li Yu, many people would feel fear, as if they were being watched by a poisonous snake. But now, everyone saw that Li Yu was injured, and the person who injured Li Yu was actually 3 minor realms lower than Li Yu. That Lin Tian, is he really a monster? He can actually do this with a gap of 3 levels? Some people's hearts palpitated. In front, Lin Tian and Li Yu's battle was incomparably violent. Terrifying sword chi swept out in all directions, causing everyone to be terrified. Ji Yu looked at Lin Tian's battle, her beautiful eyes flickering. So strong, he's actually so strong. Su Qing was shocked. Lin Tian's arrival made Su Qing and Lu Jie feel more at ease, but the 2 of them were still somewhat worried. After all, Li Yu was at the 7th celestial layer of the knowledge sea, 3 levels higher than Lin Tian. Lin Tian's defeated opponents, Xin Yin and Di Wenhong, were far from comparable. However, they saw Lin Tian and Li Yu's battle. In a quarter of an hour, Lin Tian's sword aura was shockingly strong, terrifyingly strong. He actually injured Li Yu again and again, forcing Li Yu to retreat again and again. This battle strength was simply heaven-defying. At this moment, an angry roar sounded. On the battlefield, weapons suddenly appeared beside Li Yu. There were swords, cold blades, and heavy hammers. There were a total of 18 weapons. As the 18 weapons appeared, Li Yu's eyes became even more vicious. He gloomily stared at Lin Tian. Trash. Watch me chop your limbs into pieces. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. 15 treasured swords instantly rushed out, each emitting a cold light. I'll return those words to you. Chapter 272. The 15 treasured swords clanged and flickered with cold light. Cold sword chi surrounded them. Such a scene immediately shocked most of the onlookers. He's actually able to control over a dozen weapons. He also cultivated the 100 Refinements secret technique. How is that possible? He's not from the 100 Refinements workshop. What's going on? Originally, when Liu used the 100 Refinements secret technique, many people's eyes lit up. After all, it was not easy to see an expert from the 100 Refinements workshop using the 100 Refinements secret technique in battle. However, Lin Tian also took out more than 10 treasured swords at the same time, which directly stunned everyone. Liu stared at Lin Tian. As expected, you secretly learned my 100 Refinements secret technique. Secretly learned? Lin Tian's expression was very cold. The 15 treasured swords circulated with cold, killing intent. He smiled coldly. With a move of his divine consciousness, the 15 treasured swords immediately charged towards Liu. Whoosh! 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 The 15 treasured swords brought about waves of air-piercing sounds. Waves of cold, killing intent caused everyone's hearts to tremble. It's only 15 treasured swords. How can you compete with me? Liu laughed loudly. With a wave of the folding fan in his hand, the 18 treasured swords beside Liu also vibrated and charged towards Lin Tian's treasured swords. The two sides faced each other. Dozens of weapons collided with each other, constantly emitting ear-piercing, clanging sounds. Well, what kind of battle is this? Looking at the scene in front of them, all the onlookers were moved. Their eyes could not help but flicker. Dozens of weapons collided in their field of vision. That kind of scene was too shocking. Lin Tian used his divine consciousness to control the 15 treasured swords. He carried the supreme treasure, inner spirit sword, and stepped forward. Stepping on the yin-yang puppet, he arrived in front of Liu in an instant and slashed down. Clang! The flaming sword chi drowned down and enveloped Liu. Child's play! Liu shouted. With a clang, 3 large swords rushed over from not far away, crushing Lin Tian's flaming sword light and slashing straight at Lin Tian. Liu took out 18 weapons and Lin Tian took out 15. The two collided with each other. Liu's 3 additional weapons were aimed at Lin Tiansha at this time. After all, you've only learned a little. How dare you try to compete with the orthodox? Liu said. The 3 sabers twisted and spun as they slashed down, bringing with them streaks of saber light. Even at the pinnacle of cultivation, you can only control 49 weapons. You think you're so great? Lin Tian. His expression remained cold throughout. With a jolt of his inner spirit sword, he unleashed the 4th stroke of the yang incinerating sword. The scorching flames not only swept out in all directions, but also covered the inner spirit sword, forcibly shattering the 3 large blades. After that, Lin Tian's feet flashed, bringing along a torrential stream of flames as he directly arrived before Liu. Liu's eyes were vicious. You destroyed my treasured weapon. Next, I'll kill you, Lin Tianling said coldly. The inner spirit sword was a treasure. Not only could it increase his battle strength by 70%, but it was also very hard. Ordinary treasures couldn't compare to it. In his anger, it was easy for him to destroy Liu's 3 treasured swords. Now that he had destroyed Liu's 3 treasured swords, he stepped in front of Liu and punched out. Liu also punched out. The 2 fists collided, and they both retreated. Clang! 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 Around the 2 of them, the weapons of the 30 sects kept colliding, creating shocking sparks. Within the range of the 30 sects weapons, the 2 of them also charged together, each holding a supreme sword in their hands, constantly slashing at each other. At this time, the true essence vibrating out of the 2 had reached a shocking level. Liu's fist landed on Lin Tian's chest, causing Lin Tian to stagger a step back. A mouthful of blood rushed up to his throat. However, almost at the same time, Lin Tian slashed out with the inner spirit sword in his hand without any expression. It left a deep sword mark on Li Yu's arm, almost chopping off his entire arm. Worm! Li Yu's face became a little distorted. His injury was actually more serious than Lin Tian's. 7th level of the spiritual sea. That's all you've got. Trash, Lin Tianling said. Using the yin-yang puppet, he rushed forward like a phantom, once again closing in on Li Yu. The inner spirit sword slashed across. Li Yu's eyes became extremely sinister, and his face became even more distorted. I'll kill you! I'll kill you! He was at the 7th level of the spiritual sea. There was no one in his generation who did not know him. Wherever he went, he would be respected. But now, a person at the 4th level of the spiritual sea, a person he originally wanted to tease, turned around and called him trash. Suddenly, an extremely cold aura rushed out of Li Yu's body. Li Yu's face revealed an extremely ferocious expression, like a wild beast. His eyes were filled with a fierce light, and he grinned sinisterly. I'll slowly torture you to death. Such an expression fell into the eyes of the crowd. Many people felt a chill down their spines and could not help but shudder. Lin Tian was expressionless. Do you know what others think when they see you like this? Scared? Fearful? Perhaps you have all these emotions, but most of them are just disgust. Holding the inner spirit sword, he walked step by step toward Li Yu. In the eyes of others, you're strong, but you're just a powerful clown. What did you say? Li Yu roared. Lin Tianling said coldly, angry out of humiliation. I'm just stating the truth. What do you think you're doing? Is it worth being proud of? Since you're acting like a clown, since you're doing disgusting actions, don't be afraid of others saying you're a good-for-nothing trash. Li Yu's eyes widened in anger. I'm a genius. Genius? When I kill you, you'll recall these words and feel that you're not only a good-for-nothing trash, but also a maggot who only knows how to do all kinds of disgusting things. Lin Tian said. With a clang, the inner spirit sword in his hand completely burned, and he slashed out. That Lin Tian? What a madman, actually calling that Li Yu a good-for-nothing and a maggot. My God! All around, the eyes of the onlookers stared straight. Li Yu's strength was beyond doubt. He could reach the 7th level of the sea of consciousness in his early 20s. He was definitely a super genius. But now, Lin Tian kept calling him a good-for-nothing, degrading Li Yu to be worthless and humiliating him. This really made the hearts of these people tremble. In the distance, Lu Jie and Su Qing clenched their fists, feeling comfortable. Little junior sister, your future husband is so eloquent. That's right. Hearing Lin Tian's ridicule and humiliation of Li Yu, the two girls only felt that the anger in their chests suddenly dissipated. Ji Yu snickered. She knew Lin Tian very well. Not only was his battle strength very strong, but his words were also very sharp. When facing an enemy, not only would he defeat the opponent in terms of battle strength, but he would also cause a great blow to the opponent's spirit. Ah! Li Yu roared, his face twisted, and his eyes revealed anger. Good for nothing. The cold voice sounded again. Lin Tian closed in on Li Yu and swung his sword again. Lin Tian was very clear that people like Li Yu were often very proud while their minds were twisted. When facing such people, he had to cut a wound on the opponent's pride and then sprinkle salt on it. Li Yu's face was ferocious, and the 9-yin extinction sword was pushed to the limit. The violent attacks made people's hearts tremble. At this time, Li Yu was no doubt terrifying, as if he had really turned into a fierce beast. Kill! Li Yu roared, and the violent sword chi shook the ground until it cracked continuously. With a clang, the sword chi filled the sky like a tornado and attacked. At the same time, Li Wu's 15 weapons in the surroundings vibrated even more violently. Each sword seemed to have a consciousness, and it was as if they were going to cut the sky into pieces. Lin Tian took a step back, held the sword hilt with both hands, and slashed at the sky. Bursting flames. Burning sun 9 styles. 5th sword. Boom! The sky was filled with flames, and the clanging of swords sounded. In an instant, Li Yu's tornado of swords was shattered. Almost at the same time, Lin Tian's glabella shone brightly, and he shouted coldly, 8-7 sword slash. In the void, the 15 treasured swords crisscrossed and instantly divided into 2 rows, each forming a strange formation. Then, in an instant, the sword force of the 15 treasured swords increased greatly, and the glaring sword light was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. Slash! Lin Tianlung yelled. He was a rank 4 array manipulator, and relying on the weapons to form some simple combined attack formations was countless times easier than eating and drinking to him. At this moment, the 15 treasured swords formed the simplest Big Dipper formation and octagonal demon subduing formation respectively, increasing the power of the 15 treasured swords by more than 5 times in an instant. Crack! 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 The sound of shattering rang out in an instant, and the last 15 weapons of Li Yu were completely shattered. Such a scene made the onlookers break out in cold sweat. He destroyed all of Li Yu's weapons. He really secretly learned the 100 Refinements secret technique? How can the 100 Refinements secret technique of someone who secretly learned it be more powerful than the orthodox 100 Refinements secret technique? Monster! What a monster! Everyone was stunned. At this moment, Li Yu's expression changed drastically. His weapons were all destroyed in an instant. Bastard! Li Yu roared. Among the 18 treasured swords, the worst was a high-grade spirit weapon. This was a huge fortune. Lin Tian was expressionless, and a light flickered between his eyebrows. I heard the wail of a stray dog. Li Yu was furious. You said, clang. The 15 treasured swords crisscrossed and pressed down on Li Yu with the power of the 8-7 sword formation, causing the air to sizzle. The words that Li Yu wanted to spit out were immediately stuffed back into his mouth. The 15 treasured swords pressed down, causing the color to change. Li Yu quickly retreated and continuously used the 9-shade absolute sword technique to defend against the 15 treasured swords charging at him. At this moment, Lin Tian's figure suddenly flashed in front of Li Yu. Taking advantage of the gap when Li Yu was defending against the 15 treasured swords, he ruthlessly slashed out with his sword. You, puff! Blood splattered, and an arm flew out diagonally. I'll take your left hand first. Chapter 273. Blood splattered in the air as an arm floated high in the air, causing everyone to be shocked. Li Yu of the 100 Refinements Workshop actually had an arm chopped off. Li Yu screamed and staggered a few steps back. How dare you do this? Staring at Lin Tian, Li Yu's eyes were filled with gloom and resentment. His face was even more ferocious. Lin Tian's eyes were cold as he slashed out with his sword. With a clang, a tyrannical sword wind swept out and blasted Li Yu flying over 10 meters away. Trash who only knows how to bark, he said coldly. Li Yu's expression instantly became even more sinister and twisted. I'll kill you. Holding the treasure sword in his right hand, Li Yu's body emitted an even stronger true essence fluctuation as he activated the 9 extinction sword to attack Lin Tian. Lin Tian stood on the spot and said coldly, slash. Clang. In the void, 15 treasured swords slashed down together, causing the air to vibrate with a sizzling sound. The 15 treasured swords formed the Big Dipper formation and the 8-directional demon subduing formation. The scene was extremely terrifying. With a bang, Li Yu was sent flying, and the long sword in his hand involuntarily fell out. It was also at this moment that a treasured sword pressed down from the void. Blood splattered, and a scream sounded at the same time. Li Yu's remaining arm was thrown high in the air and chopped off by the sword. Both arms were chopped off? That Lin Tian is simply a monster. The onlookers were all shocked. At this moment, even Ji Yu and the other 2 at the back couldn't help but be moved. Lin Tian was really too powerful. In the field, Lin Tian pressed towards Li Yu with 15 treasured swords floating around him. Seeing Lin Tianyi walking towards him step by step, Li Yu's face twisted into a ball. He looked left and right at his severed arm, and finally fear appeared in his eyes as he retreated step by step. You bang. Lin Tian raised his leg and kicked Li Yu away. You said that you would chop our limbs into pieces, and I said the same thing. I'll return those words to you. Lin Tian said. Li Yu trembled as his pupils constricted. You! Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere as Li Yu's left leg was chopped off. It was then crushed by Lin Tian's sword chi. Ah! Li Yu let out a heart-wrenching scream. His entire body was drenched in blood. In the distance, all the spectators couldn't help but gasp when they saw this scene, and they said in their hearts, Lin Tian is truly ruthless. Not only did he sever Li Yu's arm successively, he even shattered Li Yu's left leg now. His methods are truly, slightly cruel. Staring at Li Yu, Lin Tian's eyes became extremely cold. You want to capture her to threaten me, right? Facing Lin Tian's gaze, the fear in Li Yu's eyes grew thicker and thicker. With a trembling voice, he said, No, no. Lin Tian raised his leg and fiercely kicked Li Yu in the chest, instantly causing Li Yu to let out a shrill cry. Weren't you very arrogant at the start? Weren't you very conceited? What's going on now? Why are you trembling in fear under my feet? Why don't you stand up and show me that sinister and ferocious expression of yours? Lin Tianlong said. Blood gushed out of Li Yu's mouth. He was shocked, furious, and terrified, and his face was pale and livid. Trash! Lin Tian raised his right leg and fiercely stomped down once more. With a crack, a few of Li Yu's ribs were directly broken by him, and even more blood gushed out of his mouth. In this world of cultivators where the strong were respected, Lin Tian pursued the limits of martial arts as his goal and pursued the strongest as his end point. Walking on this path, he hated being bullied and oppressed, and he hated even more when the people most important to him were threatened. No matter if it was Zhu Wudao from back then or Li Yu at this moment, they both caused dense rage to arise from the depths of his heart. At this moment, he would use all the cruelest methods he could think of on Li Yu. Pooh! He raised the heart-spirit sword and flicked it slightly, slashing one of Li Yu's eyeballs into pieces. Ah! Li Yu struggled frantically. His face was covered in blood, and he looked like a ferocious ghost. Such a scene frightened the onlookers in the distance, and a layer of cold sweat instantly appeared on their backs. This person, so ruthless. Many people's lips could not help but tremble. In the distance, Lu Jie and Su Qing also trembled. Obviously, they were also frightened by Lin Tian's ferocity. Ji looked ahead seriously. She knew that Lin Tian was angry because of her, just like back then in the Imperial City. Therefore, even though Lin Tian's methods were very cruel at this moment, she still watched calmly. Li Yu's wails reverberated in the surroundings, causing people's scalps to go numb. Both of his arms were chopped off, the left end was broken, and one of his eyes was also destroyed by Lin Tian. At this moment, Li Yu could not help but tremble, and his only eye was filled with fear. Lin Tian raised the heart-spirit sword and slashed down again. Clang! At this moment, a tyrannical sword light rushed over from afar. Lin Tian spread out the yin-yang puppet, and he moved 20 feet away to avoid the sword light that was attacking him. Not far away, a purple-clothed young man appeared. He held a purple treasure sword in his hand and stared indifferently at Lin Tian. Guo Xiaoming, someone exclaimed. Guo Xiaoming, the #1 genius of the 100 Refinements Workshop, the indisputable #1 of his generation. Seeing this person come here, many onlookers were shocked. In the distance, Ji Yu and the other two's expressions changed slightly. Oh no, this Guo Xiaoming is not someone that Li Yu can compare to. The difference in combat strength is huge, Lu Jie whispered. In the battlefield, a cold wind blew, stirring up traces of sand and dust. As senior brother, save me, Li Yu said weakly. Guo Xiaoming glanced at Li Yu, and his eyes narrowed when he saw Li Yu's miserable state. Guo Xiaoming shifted his gaze to Lin Tian and said coldly, You did this? Lin Tian was expressionless. He raised his right hand, and the heart-spirit sword flashed coldly. With an ear-piercing sword hum, a 3-meter-long astral sword slashed at Guo Xiaoming. Heavens! This ruthless person attacked Guo Xiaoming directly. How arrogant! Many people's hearts trembled. The powerful sword light slashed at Guo Xiaoming, sending out flaming tornadoes. After that, with a thought from Lin Tian, 15 treasure swords appeared in the air and charged at Li Yu. You want to kill a fellow disciple of the 100 Refinements Workshop in front of me? Guo Xiaoming said coldly. Lin Tian smiled. In front of you? Who do you think you are? The 15 treasure swords trembled, forming the 8-7 sword formation, and its might increased greatly. Guo Xiaoming's eyes turned cold. He swung his purple sword, sending out a shocking astral sword that knocked the 15 treasure swords away. Staring at Lin Tian, Guo Xiaoming said coldly, Bai Yunfei and Yuan will work together to chase after you. But you're here now, injuring Li Yu to this extent. What happened to those two? Are you an idiot? Since I'm standing here, what do you think happened to those two? Lin Tianlong said. Guo Xiaoming's eyes narrowed. You killed them? You dared to kill people of the 100 Refinements Workshop. 100 Refinements Workshop, Lin Tian said disdainfully. Apart from producing trash, scum, trash, and idiots, what else can your 100 Refinements Workshop do? The elders of your 100 Refinements Workshop told you to capture and suppress me as your first objective after entering the Demon Burial Valley. However, who would have thought that after entering the Demon Burial Valley you, the idiot Guo Xiaoming, would only mind your own business? As for the trash Li Yu, he thought that he could easily suppress me and came to capture my important people to threaten me for fun. After that, he is now lying on the ground like a dead dog. As for Yuan Zhua and Bai Yunfei, although they were weak, they were much better than you and Li Yu. At least they didn't forget the orders given by the elders of the sect. However, they were too arrogant, so they died as well. Lin Tian stared at Guo Xiaoming with a face full of mockery. Originally, after all of you entered the Demon Burial Valley, all of you could have possibly trapped me. Unfortunately, because of an idiot like you and a trash like Li Yu, all of our efforts were for naught. Think about it. If your 100 Refinement Workshop's elders, Workshop Master, and Grand Elder knew about this, they would probably cry. As soon as Lin Tian spoke, the surroundings were in an uproar. The 100 Refinements Workshop actually told everyone to capture Lin Tian as their first goal. What's going on? Bai Yunfei and Yuan Zhua. Those two were actually killed by him. He just entered the Demon Burial Valley. Everyone's hearts palpitated. In the distance, Jiyu frowned. The 100 Refinements Workshop had actually joined forces to deal with Lin Tian. Some anger appeared in her eyes. Guo Xiaoming's face turned livid as he gripped the purple sword in his hand tightly. Lin Tian's words made him feel very uncomfortable. Clang! With a swing of the sword, Lin Tian held the Heart-Spirit sword and charged towards Li Yu. Guo Xiaoming's eyes turned cold. How dare you? With a swing of the purple sword, Guo Xiaoming's body erupted with an incomparably shocking aura, causing many people to tremble. This aura was too strong. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. With a move of his consciousness, 15 treasure swords emitted a blazing purple light and formed an 8-7 sword formation that charged towards Guo Xiaoming. This time, the 15 treasure swords were even stronger than before and temporarily stalled Guo Xiaoming. At this moment, Lin Tian had already arrived in front of Li Yu and slashed down with his sword. With a poof, Li Yu's right leg was directly shattered. Ah! Li Yu let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered, causing many people to feel a chill in their chests. Guo Xiaoming was furious. With a swing of his sword, he knocked away the 15 treasure swords and charged towards Lin Tiansha. I want to kill him. Do you think you can stop me? Lin Tianling said. Before Guo Xiaoming could get close, he swung the Heart-Spirit sword and directly cut off Li Yu's head. The head flew out diagonally and blood splattered on the ground. He's dead. He actually killed that Li Yu. According to what he said just now, he killed 3 of the 4 core disciples of the 100 Refinements Workshop in such a short period of time. Many people's hearts trembled. At this moment, the crowd stared at Lin Tian and felt that this man was simply the god of death. Lin Tian, Guo Xiaoming shouted coldly. His shocking coldness and murderous intent caused many people to tremble in fear. It's your turn. The four of you will all die in the demon burial valley. Lin Tianling replied coldly. With a boom, blazing true essence flames appeared and surrounded his entire body, making him look like a god of fire. He raised the heart spirit sword in his hand and slashed towards Guo Xiaoming without hesitation. In an instant, the sky was filled with flaming sword radiance. Chapter 274. Lin Tian could feel how powerful Guo Xiaoming was. He felt a lot of pressure from Guo Xiaoming, but even so, it was impossible for him to feel the slightest bit of fear. An old drunkard once said that someone once fought across 8 small steps. Now, he was only 4 small steps away from Guo Xiaoming, so it was not a big deal. With a clang, the flaming sword light swept across the sky and pressed down on Guo Xiaoming with great momentum. Staring at this scene, the crowd of onlookers was dumbfounded. After killing Li Yu, he actually slashed at Guo Xiaoming directly. How arrogant! Someone shuddered. In the distance, Lu Jie and Su Qing stared at each other. They were originally worried about Guo Xiaoming's arrival, but they did not expect Lin Tian to take the initiative to attack Guo Xiaoming. Ji Yu stared straight ahead and muttered to himself, "It's only been a few months, and he has already left me so far behind." Lin Tian was now too strong. On the battlefield, Guo Xiaoming's face completely darkened. "If I can't catch you, I'll commit suicide in the demon burial valley." "Commit suicide? I'll take your life personally," Lin Tianlong said. 15 bejeweled swords swept in all directions. Guo Xiaoming's face was cold. He stretched out his body, and 21 bejeweled swords appeared. Each of them flickered with a cold light. In an instant, dozens of bejeweled swords collided together. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. There was no change in his expression, but he felt that Guo Xiaoming's strength was far from what Li Yu could compare to. After a few simple collisions, his 15 bejeweled swords were gradually suppressed. Even though he formed the 8-7 sword formation, it did not change the situation much. The difference in cultivation level is indeed a big problem, Lin Tian thought to himself. He waved the inner spirit sword and directly drew the 5th sword of the 9 forms of the incinerating sun. With a loud boom, flaming sword auras swept up in the battlefield. Guo Xiaoming's expression turned solemn. Clearly, he was also moved by Lin Tian's battle prowess. However, his attack did not stop at all. The 21 treasured weapons continued to collide with Lin Tian's 15 treasured weapons, forcing Lin Tian's 15 treasured swords back inch by inch, creating huge cracks in the ground. In the blink of an eye, the two of them collided, sword against sword, fist against fist, shaking the air. These two are so strong that Lin Tian seems to be at a disadvantage. As expected, the gap between him and Guo Xiaoming is huge. Nonsense. Guo Xiaoming is publicly acknowledged as the #1 person of his generation in the 4 major sects. Many people whispered. On the battlefield, the two figures continued to exchange blows. Martial techniques, fists, kicks, and weapons collided with each other. After dozens of clashes, the sound of swords clanging could be heard. Lin Tian retreated dozens of steps, a bloody wound appearing on his left arm. As expected, although that Lin Tian is strong, he is not Guo Xiaoming's opponent. Will he die here? It seems that the 100 Refinements Workshop wants to capture him. Maybe they will suppress him first. Many people muttered. Guo Xiaoming stared coldly at Lin Tian. The purple sword in his hand shone brightly as he walked forward step by step. With your Sea of Consciousness 4th layer cultivation, do you think you can fight me after defeating Li Yu? Naive, do you really think the difference in cultivation is nothing? With a clang, the 21 treasured weapons beside Guo Xiaoming clanged. Don't be too self-righteous, Lin Tianlong said coldly. With a flash of his feet, he threw out the true spirit sword in his hand. It turned into a flash of lightning and flew towards Guo Xiaoming. You feel powerless, so you threw away your sword? Guo Xiaoming said coldly as he swung his sword to repel the true spirit sword. At this moment, An even more terrifying sword aura rushed out. Lin Tian rushed towards Guoxiuming with his bare hands. The flame in his right hand was burning. The violent flame, sword aura, immediately enveloped the entire battlefield. Guoxiuming's expression changed. "You, bursting flame!" Lin Tian, Lung shouted. Lin Tian had discovered a long time ago that when he did not have a weapon in his hand, the sword technique he used was more than twice as powerful as when he had a sword. At this moment, he threw away the true spirit sword and used the yang incinerating fifth stroke with his bare right hand. Instantly, the sword pattern in the center of his right hand emitted traces of light, causing the power of the fifth stroke to skyrocket. Guoxiuming obviously did not expect this scene. He was instantly thrown into disarray. However, Guoxiuming was recognized as the strongest in his generation among the four major sects. Although he was shocked by Lin Tian's sudden attack, he quickly counterattacked. The 21 treasured weapons were placed in front of him at the same time, barely blocking the violent yang incinerating fifth stroke. "You have a fast reaction," a cold voice sounded. Guoxiuming's expression changed. Lin Tian was already in front of him. "You, bang!" Lin Tian raised his hand and punched Guoxiuming's cheek. Instantly, Guoxiuming was sent flying more than 10 meters away. Seeing this scene, the onlookers' eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He sent Guoxiuming flying. That person who was recognized as the strongest in his generation among the four major sects. There are 4 small realms between them. What a monster! Everyone's heart palpitated. Then someone remembered something else. Just now, he seemed to be using a sword technique with his bare hands. But the power of the sword technique he used was much more terrifying than when he was holding a sword. What the hell is this? A monster! All the cultivators were shocked. Without a sword, he was even more terrifying than when he was holding a sword. This had completely overturned everyone's understanding. In the distance, Lu Jie and Su Qing looked at Ji Yu and said, "Junior sister, do you know what's going on with him?" The 2 girls knew about the relationship between Ji Yu and Lin Tian. They felt that Ji Yu should have some understanding of this matter. The sword technique he used with his bare hands was actually more powerful than when he was using a treasured sword. This really surprised the 2 of them. I don't know either. I've never seen him use it before. Ji Yu was also surprised. "You don't know either?" "I don't know." For a moment, the 3 girls were stunned. They could only stare at the battlefield. At this moment, the battlefield was already riddled with holes. There were huge cracks everywhere on the ground. Guoxiuming stood up with blood at the corner of his mouth. The gaze he used to stare at Lin Tian became even colder. "Among my peers, you're the first one who can hurt me," Guoxiuming said coldly. Lin Tian raised his hand and used the weapon control technique to call back the inner spirit sword. He pointed it at Guoxiuming. "You're really arrogant." Staring at Guoxiuming, he shook the inner spirit sword and charged straight at him. Guoxiuming's eyes were cold. The purple sword was full of killing intent as it met the attack. The 2 treasures collided with each other. With the 2 of them as the center, a violent flow of vital essence instantly spread out. In Lin Tian's hand, the inner spirit sword was burning brightly. He slashed down with the 4th move of the 9 forms of the incinerating sun, crack. At this moment, there was a crisp cracking sound. Lin Tian's expression suddenly changed. He only felt that his body suddenly became a little cold. It was as if there was a stream of yin qi rushing up from the ground and into his body. This caused him to stop in his tracks. He forcefully withdrew his sword momentum and retreated quickly. Almost at the next moment when Lin Tian retreated, Guoxiuming's expression also changed. He also retreated quickly. What's going on with these 2? That's right. Why did they suddenly withdraw their attacks? Strange. Many people were puzzled. In the next moment, the ground suddenly shook. On the surface of the ground, huge cracks appeared. Black mist rushed up, and the entire ground collapsed. In just an instant, the space within 1,000 feet was completely covered by a pitch-black airflow. The terrifying coldness seemed to freeze everything. What's going on? What happened? There's another space underground? Let's go. Some people's expressions changed. At this moment, everyone felt a bone-piercing chill. They were shocked by the scene in front of them. Screams rang out. As the ground continued to collapse, some spectators fell into the ground. Moreover, there was not only one person who fell down. At least dozens of people fell down and were instantly covered by the thick black mist underground. Who? Ah! Soon, shocked and miserable screams came from the underground space. The cultivators who fell down seemed to have encountered something terrifying. Hearing these screams, some of the cultivators who did not fall down felt a chill down their spines and quickly retreated into the distance. Lin Tian used the yin and yang hua. He took a step in the air and instantly arrived beside Ji Yu and the other two girls. Let's get out of here first. He pulled Ji Yu and quickly retreated. Now that his divine sense was extremely powerful, he could clearly feel that there was something extremely dangerous in the underground space. At this moment, the ground under his feet shook again and shattered with a boom. Ah! Lu Jie screamed and immediately fell down. Lin Tian jumped to the side with Ji Yu and Su Qing, but he did not have time to grab Lu Jie. His expression suddenly changed. In just an instant, Lu Jie's figure was covered by the black mist in the underground space. Senior sister, Su Qing shouted. In the underground space, the black mist rushed up one by one, carrying a shocking chill. Lin Tian occasionally glanced around, only to see two blood-red eyes flashing in the pitch-black underground space. This made him frown immediately. Su Qing grabbed Lin Tian and said anxiously, "Senior brother Lin, please save senior sister Lu." Su Qing heard the miserable screams coming from the underground space just now, so she naturally knew that there was danger down there. Now that Lu Jie had fallen down, she was naturally very worried. Ji Yu also said, "Lin Tian, we have to go down and find senior sister Lu." Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. The heart-spirit sword shook, and a sword wind slashed out, sweeping away all the black mist below. "When you go down, you must stay by my side," he said. Lu Jie was a good person. She had taken good care of Ji Yu in the Valley of the Harp, so he naturally would not help. He coldly glanced at Guo Xiaoming, who was extremely far away, and jumped down into the underground space with Ji Yu and Su Qing. Thud! The three of them landed on the ground, and the sound of footsteps echoed from both sides. The space below him was pitch black, and he could only see 3 meters in front of him at most. Lin Tian used his divine sense to scan the area, and he discovered that this underground space was actually very large. It was similar to the ancient tomb he had seen in the setting sun mountain, and there were numerous forks in the road. Suddenly, a gust of yin qi appeared from the side, and a strange blood-red demon figure flashed out, pouncing toward the three of them. Su Qing shuddered in fright. Ji Yu raised his hand and slashed forward, but the sword went straight through the blood-red demon figure. How could this be? Ji Yu's expression changed slightly. The blood-red shadow, with thick yin qi, pounced in front of them in an instant. Lin Tian reached out and pulled Ji Yu behind him. At the same time, a white lotus petal floated out from between his eyebrows. Ugh! An ear-piercing scream rang out. The blood-red shadow crashed into the white lotus and was instantly sent flying like a scarecrow. Chapter 275. Lin Tian's eyes glinted when he saw the crimson shadow being sent flying. It really is a spirit of the dead. An old drunkard told him about spirits of the dead before he entered the demon burial valley. Spirits of the dead were beings born due to the presence of extreme negative energy. They had no physical form and could reside in corpses. It was very difficult to destroy them with normal means. Full text to read. If that's the case, then this black fog is the yin qi that the old man spoke of. With such dense yin qi gathered in this underground space, this place is truly worthy of being called the chaotic battlefield of the past. I wonder how many people died here back then. Lin Tian thought to himself. The crimson shadow was sent flying and disappeared without a trace after letting out a shriek. Lin Tian did not go after it. Lin Tian, was that a spirit of the dead? Jiyu asked. Lin Tian was surprised. You know about spirits of the dead? Lin Tian felt a bit embarrassed as soon as he asked that question. I forgot that you're a student of Senior Yu Wushuang. That senior should have mentioned it to you before we came to the Demon Burial Valley. Jiyu was stunned and stared at Lin Tian. What's wrong? Lin Tian was puzzled. Su Qing said weakly at that moment. Brother Lin, I know about spirits of the dead as well. Common cultivators know about them. Lin Tianyi was shocked. He opened his mouth and said, You know about them? An old drunkard told me about them a few days before I entered the Demon Burial Valley. Isn't that something that only airborne realm beings know? Jiyu felt exasperated. I told you to read more books. That's common sense. Lin Tian was speechless. Lin Tian suddenly felt like he was blushing. But Jiyu looked at Lin Tian with a bit of surprise and said, Common means are ineffective against spirits of the dead. That sort of mine just now was useless. But how did you hurt that spirit of the dead? That spirit of the dead screamed in agony. It seemed like you hurt it badly, and it chose to run away. Yeah. Su Qing also stared at Lin Tian in astonishment. Lin Tian smiled. I have a special method to deal with Yin spirits. Lin Tian didn't explain in detail, and Jiyu and Su Qing didn't ask either. They just looked at Lin Tian in surprise from time to time. At this moment, Lin Tian's eyes flickered with a faint light. He thought to himself that the old drunkard was right. The White Lotus in his sea of consciousness really did have a clear offensive ability against things like Yin spirits. It was simply the nemesis of Yin spirits. He paused for a moment and scanned the surroundings with his divine sense. After a while, he said, Lu Jie's aura is here. Let's go this way. The ground collapsed as pitch-black Yin energy rushed out from the underground space and floated in the air. Soon, it gradually faded. In the underground space, many people looked down in a daze. There's actually such a strange place. It seems very unusual. Indeed, I've read in some ancient books that places like this that are filled with Yin Qi often contain precious treasures. Let's go down and take a look. Many people whispered to each other. Soon, some people's eyes lit up and they directly jumped into the underground space. Everyone who entered the Demon Burial Valley came to look for opportunities and treasures. Now that they were faced with such a place that could possibly contain precious treasures and opportunities, many people jumped down without hesitation despite the dangers. In the distance, Guoxiuming stared at the underground space. Lin Tian, you can't escape from me, Guoxiuming said coldly and jumped down. Not long after, the thick Yin energy in this place attracted many people. Among them, there were many rogue cultivators, and there were also people from the 4 great sections. When they saw the underground space, they were all moved. Soon, cultivators jumped down one after another. Obviously, they all wanted to find some treasures in the underground space. In the underground space, the Yin Qi became much fainter. Lin Tian and the other 2 walked along a fork in the road, carefully walking forward. The fork was very wide and the air was very humid. There were potholes under their feet. Obviously, these forks weren't man-made. They were naturally formed. Could it be that the Yin Qi corroded the soil? Lin Tian thought to himself. Thinking about it, it was very likely. After all, there were even Yin spirits in this underground space. At this moment, the smell of blood wafted in the air. Lin Tian looked forward. At this moment, because the Yin Qi in the underground space became much fainter, his vision became much clearer. He saw several corpses lying on the ground in front of him. They were all skin and bones. Their flesh and blood seemed to have been sucked by some kind of demonic beast. It was a horrifying sight. Yin Qi. Lin Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. Beside these corpses, he could feel an extremely dense Yin Qi, which was much denser than anywhere else. It was as if there was an amalgamation of Yin Qi that had been here for a long time. After a pause, he asked Jiyu and Su Qing to be careful and continued to walk forward. Not long after, a few more corpses appeared on the ground. They were all skin and bones. However, unlike before, these corpses had obvious sword wounds. It seemed that they were first killed by a sword, and then their flesh and blood essence were sucked away. The three of them frowned slightly. After shaking their heads, they continued to walk forward. Tabiye, tabiye, tabiye. Walking in the fork, the sound of their footsteps could be heard from time to time. Not long after, the three of them walked very far. At this moment, they saw Lu Jie at a corner. Junior sister Su, little junior sister Lin Tian. Lu Jie walked over quickly. Senior sister. Su Qing shouted happily and went forward to greet her. At this moment, Lin Tianyi pulled Su Qing back. At the same time, he slashed out a ray of sword chi and landed at Lu Jie's feet. Senior brother Lin, what are you doing? Su Qing was shocked. Lu Jie seemed to be frightened. A slightly aggrieved expression appeared on her face. Jiyu pulled Su Qing and pointed at the sword in Lu Jie's hand. It was full of blood. Su Qing was shocked. Senior sister, what are you? A few people wanted to molest me. I injured them. This blood is theirs, Lu Jie said. As she spoke, Lu Jie walked towards the three of them. With a clang, Lin Tian raised his hand and pointed his sword forward. Don't try to hide from my senses. You can't hide your dancing chi. As he spoke, his glabella lit up. Lotus petals flew out and instantly condensed into a 3-inch short sword. Without hesitation, he slashed forward. Seeing this scene, Jiyu and Su Qing were shocked. A white lotus floated out of his glabella. What kind of martial technique was this? They had never seen it before. However, immediately after, seeing Lin Tian condensing a short sword and slashing towards Lu Jie, Su Qing's expression changed. Senior brother Lin, you can't. Although she was already suspicious of Lu Jie, Su Qing was still very worried. Don't worry, I can accurately kill the thing in her body, Lin Tianling said coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, the 3-inch lotus sword moved even faster and pierced into Lu Jie's body. Suddenly, an ear-piercing scream came from Lu Jie's body. Then, a black shadow floated out of Lu Jie's body. Its eyes were blood red, and it stared ferociously at Lin Tian. The black shadow was surrounded by an astonishing amount of yin qi. As soon as it appeared, it gave people an extremely cold feeling. The temperature of the fork seemed to drop by dozens of degrees in an instant. Su Qing's expression changed. This is... Lin Tianling smiled. The 3-inch lotus sword rushed out of Lu Jie's body and slashed straight at the black shadow. After 10 days of personal training by an old drunkard, not only did he cultivate the 9 styles of the burning sun to the 5th style, he was also more familiar with the control of the white lotus in his sea of consciousness. Now, he could already control the lotus sword to enter a person's body without harming their sea of consciousness and cranial nerves. Clang! The lotus sword slashed, shining brightly. The black shadow seemed to be very afraid of the lotus sword. It roared at Lin Tian and disappeared in a flash. Seeing the black shadow disappear, Lin Tian put away the white lotus sword and moved to Lu Jie's side. At this time, Lu Jie had already fainted. Her face was very pale, and some black qi could be faintly seen hidden under the surface of her skin. Senior sister, Su Qing hurriedly rushed over. Jiyu looked at Lu Jie and said worriedly, Lin Tian, this black qi it's the yin qi left behind by the black shadow. It's okay, just use vital essence to force it out. Lin Tian Dao. He injected vital essence into Lu Jie's body and began to expel the yin qi in Lu Jie's body. Gradually, the black qi under Lu Jie's skin became lighter and lighter. Seeing this scene, Jiyu and Su Qing both felt relieved. Lin Tian, that thing just now, could it be? Ji frowned. Lin Tian nodded. To be able to reside in a living person's body and control it, it should be a malicious spirit. A malicious spirit was somewhat terrifying, and it was difficult to deal with it with ordinary means. However, a malicious spirit was even more terrifying than a malicious spirit. It could be said to be an existence of a higher level than a malicious spirit. Not only did it have some spiritual intelligence, but it could also control ordinary malicious spirits. A malicious spirit? That's something comparable to the airborne realm. Su Qing was shocked. She stared at Lin Tian with an even more surprised expression. Senior brother Lin, what kind of martial arts technique did you use just now? You can actually force the malicious spirit out of senior sister Lu Jie's body directly. Moreover, that malicious spirit seems to be very afraid of you. This ordinary airborne realm powerhouses can't do this. Not only Su Qing, but Jiyu also stared at Lin Tian at this moment. First, he scared away the malicious spirit, and now he could even injure the malicious spirit. This really made the two girls a little shocked. At this moment, a dry cough sounded, and Lu Jie woke up. Jiyu and Su Qing originally wanted to ask how Lin Tian could hurt the malicious spirit and the malicious spirit, but when they saw that Lu Jie had woken up, they all surrounded her. Senior sister, are you okay? Su Qing asked. Lu Jie was a little weak. She rubbed her head and said, I'm fine. Where is this? What happened to me? Seeing that Lu Jie was fine, the three of them were relieved. As for Lu Jie's question, the three of them casually dealt with it. Walking along this fork, they saw a few people who died under the sword. They should be killed after Lu Jie was manipulated by the malicious spirit. The three of them naturally wouldn't say such things. After Lu Jie was fine, the group didn't leave. Instead, they continued to walk deeper. After all, it was such an underground space. The few of them could guess that this place was unusual. It should contain something extraordinary, and they wanted to try their luck. Not long after, the front became a little empty, and screams were heard. Lin Tian and the other three came here and saw a place that looked like a karst cave in front of them. There were dozens of cultivators in it. At this time, a few malicious spirits jumped among the dozens of people, and cultivators were killed from time to time. But even so, no one here wanted to escape. All of them were rushing into the depths of this karst cave. Lin Tian looked up and saw that in the deepest part of the karst cave, a 5-foot-tall green tree swayed, and a little bit of pure white light swayed. The tree of life? Lin Tian's expression changed immediately. P.S. The second chapter is around 8 p.m. Recently, I have a bad cold, a headache, and a runny nose. It's a little annoying to write. Also, in the past few days, the update time has been unstable. It's about 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. every day. I hope everyone can forgive me. This weekend at the latest, the dragon will adjust the update time to the same as before. Chapter 276. Reading on a mobile phone, Lin Tian had read about the Tree of Life in an ancient book by chance. It was said that it was formed from the essence of life and contained an astonishing amount of life energy. If one could cultivate under the Tree of Life, 1 day of cultivation would be equivalent to 10 days of cultivation. Moreover, a tree of life that had grown for a certain period of time could even produce a fruit of life. This fruit could definitely be considered a rare treasure. It was said that a single fruit of life could increase a cultivator's lifespan by at least 10 years. Its value was immeasurable. It's just as that old man said, when things reach an extreme, they will move in the opposite direction. The gathering of extreme energy actually evolved into the aura of life. Product Book Net. Lin Tian muttered to himself. A tree of life actually grew in this place filled with energy. This really surprised Lin Tian. Although this tree of life was only half a zhang tall, the life energy it emitted was extremely shocking. It must have been growing for at least a few decades and was almost at the level where it could produce a fruit of life. Lin Tian's eyes flickered. Without a doubt, this was a treasure among treasures. Jiyu and Lu Jie were also surprised when they saw the Tree of Life. Clearly, they did not expect such a treasure tree to exist here. Boom! In this spacious area, the cultivators' eyes turned red as they madly rushed towards the Tree of Life. However, in this cave, several spirits were also constantly attacking the cultivators. From time to time, someone would die. Be careful of the spirits. Damn it, there's no way to deal with them. What should we do? Can we only give up? Screams and angry voices echoed in the surroundings at the same time. There were tens of cultivators inside the karst cave. All of them were charging towards the Tree of Life. In the beginning, none of them were fearful of the Een spirits. Gradually, however, more and more cultivators died to the Een spirits. No matter how the cultivators attacked, they were incapable of harming more than a few of the Een spirits. Thus, many of them began to feel fearful. Although the Tree of Life was coveted and envied, life was undoubtedly the most important. Seeing the cultivators close to the Tree of Life being killed by the Een spirits, and even seeing the cultivators being devoured by the Een spirits and turned into dried corpses in the blink of an eye, the dozens of cultivators who were madly rushing towards the Tree of Life were all terrified at this moment. Lin Tian stared straight ahead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15, 16. There are 16 Een spirits in total. There were 16 blood shadows in the karst cave, all of them exuding a sinister aura. Lin Tian glanced at them, then said to Ji Yu and the other two behind him, "Little Yu, the three of you wait here. Don't move." As soon as he finished speaking, he flashed into the depths of the cave. Since he saw the Tree of Life here, he naturally had to seize it. The value of this thing was immeasurable. Lin Tian's speed was very fast. In an instant, he had covered a large distance. However, this also attracted the attention of the dozen Een spirits in the karst cave. Immediately, 2 Een spirits charged towards him, letting out strange cries. "Scram!" Lin Tianling said. A few white lotuses floated out from between his eyebrows and floated towards the 2 Een spirits, imprinting themselves on their bodies. Suddenly, the 2 Een spirits let out shrill screams. Their blood-red figures trembled as they were sent flying by an invisible force. This is Lin Tian. He can directly injure the Een spirits? What kind of technique is that? Those who entered the karst cave were all spectators to watch the battle between Lin Tian, Li Yu, and Guoxiuming. At this moment, when they saw Lin Tianyi instantly sweep away the Een spirits that everyone else was helpless against, they were all shocked. "The Tree of Life!" A cry of surprise sounded. From another opening in the karst cave, a young man in purple walked in. It was Guoxiuming. Seeing the Tree of Life, Guoxiuming naturally saw Lin Tian approaching the Tree of Life. Immediately, his eyes turned cold. He raised the purple sword in his hand and slashed at Lin Tian with a cold sword light. Lin Tian was about to reach the Tree of Life when he felt danger coming from behind. He immediately changed his direction forcefully and moved more than 3 feet away. Landing on the ground, Lin Tian looked at Guoxiuming. His eyes instantly turned cold. "Guoxiuming, he's here too." Lu Jie frowned. Guoxiuming's eyes flashed. After blocking Lin Tian, he gave up on Lin Tian and directly rushed toward the Tree of Life. Obviously, in Guoxiuming's eyes, the Tree of Life was many times more important than Lin Tian. At this moment, Guoxiuming's speed was very fast. He dodged several Een spirits that attacked him and soon came within 5 feet of the Tree of Life. Lin Tian waved his right hand, and the heart-soul sword appeared. Flames burned fiercely, and he was about to slash at Guoxiuming. However, in the next moment, his eyes moved and he stopped. A cold smile appeared on his face. In front of Guoxiuming, a black shadow suddenly appeared silently. It was the malicious spirit that was scared away by him in the fork. "What's that?" Guoxiuming's eyes narrowed. He raised the purple sword and slashed forward. The malicious spirit's bloody eyes flashed. An ear-piercing roar came out, and with a bang, Guoxiuming was sent flying. An astonishing Een chi spread out. In this karst cave, all 16 Een spirits immediately surrounded the malicious spirit. Could it be a malicious spirit? Some people trembled. The Een chi was far more powerful than that of the Een spirits. Coupled with the frightening sense of oppression, it suddenly frightened everyone. There's such a thing here? No, we have to leave. No one can get this Tree of Life. Go, we have to go. Suddenly, some people began to retreat. The existence of the 16 Een spirits had already frightened the group of cultivators. They did not expect a malicious spirit to appear at this time. A malicious spirit was comparable to an airborne realm cultivator. Who could deal with it? Staying would be suicide. Seeing the cultivators one by one, the malicious spirit's blood-red eyes shone as if it had seen delicious food. It immediately rushed out like lightning. In just an instant, one of the cultivator's chest was pierced by the malicious spirit. His entire body began to shrink at a speed visible to the naked eye. All of his flesh and blood flowed into the malicious spirit's body like a small stream flowing into the sea. Run! Looking at this scene, many people were so scared that their faces turned pale. Immediately, the cultivators in the cave swarmed out of the cave like a swarm of bees. However, the malicious spirit's speed was too fast. Coupled with the 16 spirits rushing to kill, there were too few cultivators in this karst cave who could escape. Most of them were trapped inside. One by one, they waved their swords in fear, but it was useless against the spirits and the malicious spirit. Ah! Shrill screams echoed, and one cultivator after another died tragically. At this time, the malicious spirit forced in front of another cultivator. Its blood-red eyes shone as it grabbed at the cultivator. Suddenly, the cultivator was so scared that his face turned pale and he almost fainted. "Get lost!" A cold voice sounded. Lin Tianyi flashed, condensing the white lotus sword and slashing at the malicious spirit. Lin Tianyi didn't recognize this cultivator, but this cultivator was wearing the Burning Sun sect's uniform, so he should be a disciple of the Burning Sun sect. The Burning Sun sect treated him very well. Now that a disciple of the Burning Sun sect was about to suffer in front of him, he naturally couldn't just stand by and watch. Seeing that the malicious spirit was forced back, the cultivator came back to his senses. His expression was surprised and happy. "Thank you, Senior Lin Tianyi." This cultivator actually joined the Burning Sun sect earlier than Lin Tianyi, so he should call Lin Tianyi Jr. brother. However, because of Lin Tianyi's strength and his identity as Li Chongfeng's disciple, many disciples of the Burning Sun sect called Lin Tianyi Senior brother. "Leave this place," Lin Tianyi said. The cultivator nodded and said, "Senior brother Lin, we still have a few fellow disciples here." "I know." Lin Tianyi nodded. Scanning the karst cave, he naturally found a few other disciples of the Burning Sun sect. Suddenly, the yin and yang row spread out, and more white lotuses floated out from between his eyebrows, forcing the yin spirits back and guiding the disciples of the Burning Sun sect to gather together. "Let's go," he said to the few of them. Their faces were full of gratitude. "Thank you, Senior brother Lin." Saying so, they ran out along the path Lin Tianyi opened for them. Seeing them leave, Lin Tianyi tilted his head, and his gaze fell on the Tree of Life again. His footsteps flashed, and in an instant he rushed toward the Tree of Life. Almost at the same time, Guoxiuming rushed over from the other side and immediately blocked Lin Tianyi's path. 21 precious weapons clanged and slashed toward Lin Tianyi. Lin Tianyi's face turned cold. After taking a step back, he instantly took out 15 precious swords. "Get lost," he said coldly. 15 precious swords crisscrossed, clanging as they slashed toward Guoxiuming. Guoxiuming's face turned cold when Lin Tianyi blocked his way. "I'll suppress you first," Guoxiuming said coldly. He originally entered this underground space to capture Lin Tianyi. "You think you can do it?" Lin Tianyi said in a low voice. In an instant, the two of them fought again. Dozens of weapons clashed, and rays of light from martial arts slashed across, causing the karst cave to be destroyed inch by inch. After all, this was a space naturally formed underground, not man-made. How could it withstand the battle between the two of them? A lot of rubble fell down. You guys stop. This place will collapse," a cultivator cried out. However, how could the two of them stop fighting? At this moment, a woman walked into the karst cave. It was Shun Yin from the Valley of the Harp. Entering the karst cave, Shun Yin instantly saw the Tree of Life in the depths of the karst cave. Her eyes immediately lit up. She quickly passed through the battlefield of Lin Tianyi and Guoxiuming, avoiding a few yin spirits, and arrived next to the Tree of Life in the blink of an eye. "The Tree of Life is mine," Shun Yin laughed. Lin Tianyi and Guoxiuming turned their heads. Someone had passed through their battlefield and arrived next to the Tree of Life, wanting to get it first. Their eyes turned cold. They raised their hands at the same time and slashed a blazing sword light at Xun Yin. Almost at the same time, a malicious spirit that was devouring the flesh and blood of a cultivator in the distance screamed and rushed toward Xun Yin. Obviously, this malicious spirit was very concerned about the Tree of Life. As soon as Xun Yin grabbed the Tree of Life, she saw two terrifying sword lights and a dark shadow full of oppressive force coming toward her. Her face suddenly changed. Xun Yin didn't have time to put away the Tree of Life. She hurriedly moved to the side. Clang! Clang! Lin Tianyi and Guoxiuming's sword lights arrived one after another. They landed next to the Tree of Life and immediately shattered the ground. Chapter 277. The ground of the karst cave collapsed. Through the huge cracks, billowing Yin-Chi came from below, causing everyone's expression to change. Large rocks fell from where the Tree of Life was. Soon, a huge abyss appeared in the karst cave, as if it was a dark and bottomless hell. There's still space under the ground? Where the hell is this place? Oh no, the Tree of Life fell. Someone shouted. Lin Tian tilted his head and saw that the place where the Tree of Life was located had completely collapsed. The Tree of Life also fell into the dark abyss. It was also at this time that the malicious spirit let out a roar and jumped down with the Tree of Life. Lin Tian frowned and thought it was a pity that the Tree of Life was gone just like that. Clang! An ear-piercing sword sound rang out, and a sword light came straight at him. Guoxiuming's eyes were cold and indifferent. Since the Tree of Life is gone, I'll suppress you directly. Staring at Lin Tian, Guoxiuming's expression was cold and indifferent. He seemed very calm and confident. In fact, he did have the qualifications to be calm and confident because his cultivation was high enough and his combat strength was strong enough. He was far from someone like Li Yu. What those three couldn't do, you can't do either, Lin Tianling said. He used the weapon control technique and the 8-7 sword formation press forward. At the same time, he used the 9 styles of the burning sun and the flaming sword light swept out in all directions. You're indeed very strong. There's no doubt about that. Unfortunately, you're still not my opponent, Guoxiuming said coldly. Lin Tian's face did not change, but he had to admit that Guoxiuming's combat strength was indeed stronger than his. After all, he was 4 small realms away from Guoxiuming. Even so, he was not afraid. His combat strength was not as good as Guoxiuming's, but it did not mean that Guoxiuming could defeat him. The inner spirit sword shook and the sword's roar became louder, and the sword momentum became stronger. Rumble! The battle between the two could be said to be exceptionally fierce. Suddenly, the karst cave trembled and cracked even more. Pieces of earth and gravel kept falling from above. Many people trembled with fear and anger. These two bastards, the ground is already broken, and they still want to fight. If this goes on, I'll be killed. Damn it, 2 lunatics. Someone cursed. Everyone ran out of the cave while avoiding the Yin spirits in the cave. Most of them were pale. At this moment, a shriek rang out. In the depths of the karst cave, at the edge of the bottomless abyss, Xun Yin was entangled by a huge suction force from below. It was as if a huge hand was trying to drag her down. She grabbed onto a sharp rock at the edge of the abyss. Her face was filled with fear as she looked in the direction of Ji Yu and the others. Junior sisters, please help me. Looking at Xun Yin, Ji Yu and the others were moved. Junior sister Ji, help me. You are the direct disciple of the Valley Master. You wouldn't leave your fellow disciples in the lurch, right? Xun Yin shouted. Xun Yan's cultivation was at the 5th heavenly layer of the Sea of Consciousness. Even if she fell into this huge abyss, she could still escape in the air by relying on the artifact control technique. However, at this time, there was a huge suction force at the bottom of the abyss. In her current state, it was difficult for her to even grab the edge of the abyss and climb up. She needed to rely on external forces. "Junior sister, don't go. It's very dangerous," Lu Jie said in a low voice. Su Qing also whispered, "That's right. It's not worth the risk for this kind of person. She has always been against you." Obviously, Xinyan didn't have a good reputation in the Valley of the Harp. At the very least, Lu Jie and Su Qing didn't like Xinyan. Jiyu hesitated for a moment. In the end, she took a step forward and said, "After all, we are fellow disciples. Moreover, she hasn't done anything outrageous. If I leave her in the lurch, I will bring shame to Master." As she spoke, she reminded Lu Jie and Su Qing to be careful. Then, her figure flashed and rushed out like a gust of wind. Junior sister, Lu Jie and Su Qing were shocked. Lin Tian and Guoxiuming were fighting. At this moment, they naturally saw this scene and immediately frowned. At this time, Jiyu rushed to the front. In an instant, more than 10 Yin spirits rushed over. This made Lin Tian, Lu Jie, and Su Qing's expressions change. But soon, the three of them were shocked. Jiyu's figure was extremely agile. Not a single Yin spirit could get within 3 feet of her. She floated past like a gust of wind, shaking off all the Yin spirits with a sway of her body. So powerful! This is the Phantom Lotus movement technique of the White Lotus Sword Codex. Although Junior Sister's cultivation is only at the 2nd heavenly layer of the Sea of Consciousness, I didn't expect her to have cultivated this movement technique to such a level. It seems that she has left the other core disciples far behind. Lu Jie and Su Qing were surprised. Not only Lu Jie and Su Qing, but also Lin Tian and Guoxiuming, who were staring at this scene, were surprised. Not to mention Ji Yu's battle strength. In terms of movement technique, even Lin Tian, who had reached the 2nd heavenly layer of the Yin and Yang puppet, felt extremely amazed. It was not that Ji Yu's speed was fast, but that her steps were very ethereal. It was really like a dream. When Ji Yu moved, he actually lost Ji Yu's breath in an instant, as if Ji Yu had directly disappeared. At the same time, on the edge of the abyss, Xin Yin was also shocked, and a trace of jealousy suddenly appeared in her eyes. At this time, Ji Yu had already arrived at the edge of the abyss. "Senior sister, after I pull you up, I will immediately leave at the fastest speed," Ji Yu said. There was a huge suction force at the edge of the abyss. Although it was weaker than at the beginning, it was still not to be underestimated. Ji Yu inserted a long sword into the ground, held the sword hilt with one hand to stabilize his body, and grabbed Xin Yin with the other hand. With a little force, he pulled Xin Yin up from the edge of the abyss. "Senior sister, let's go," Ji Yu said. Xin Yin breathed a sigh of relief, but a cold light suddenly flashed in her eyes. She lowered her voice and sneered. "Thank you, junior sister." As soon as she finished speaking, Xin Yin secretly exerted force and pulled Ji Yu down into the abyss. Ji Yu immediately fell into the abyss along with her sword. In an instant, they were swallowed by the suction force from the bottom of the abyss. Taking advantage of this gap, Xin Yin quickly dodged and rushed out of the range of the suction force. Junior sister. In the distance, Lu Jie and Su Qing's faces changed greatly. At the same time, Lin Tian and Guoxiuming were fighting. Their faces also changed wildly, and they took a step toward the abyss. "Do you have time to care about other things now?" Guoxiuming said indifferently. "Get lost." Lin Tian's eyes were full of killing intent. His whole body was instantly surrounded by true essence flames, and the violent sword momentum swept in all directions, forcing Guoxiuming to retreat a few steps. After that, Lin Tian didn't have time to think. He spread out the yin and yang row and came to the edge of the abyss like lightning. He directly used the equipment control technique to rush to the bottom of the abyss and disappeared into the darkness in an instant. Lin Tian, senior brother Lin, Lu Jie and Su Qing's faces changed again. Guoxiuming was moved. Seeing Lin Tian jump into the abyss, he immediately frowned. The owner of the 100 Refinements Workshop and the others had ordered to capture Lin Tian alive and bring him back to the 100 Refinements Workshop. Now that Lin Tian had jumped into the abyss, it was likely that he would die. How could they bring him back? Looking at the dark abyss, Xiaoming paused for a moment, then turned and left. Shunyin stared at Lin Tian jumping into the abyss. At first, she was shocked, then she laughed. Stupid. She was jealous of Jiyu and secretly pulled Jiyu into the abyss, but she didn't expect that Lin Tian would jump in with Jiyu. This undoubtedly made her very excited. Compared to Jiyu, she hated Lin Tian more. Lin Tian humiliated her in the Valley of the Harp, and Lin Tian's master killed her master. Now that Lin Tian had jumped into the abyss, she was afraid that he wouldn't survive. Naturally, she was very happy. Shunyin, Junior's sister went to save you, but you repaid her kindness with ingratitude. Lu Jie was furious. Shunyin said indifferently, "When did I harm her?" She suddenly let go of me and fell into the abyss because of exhaustion. It has nothing to do with me. With that, Shunyin walked out of the cave. Shunyin, you are shameless. Just you wait. I will definitely report this matter to the Valley Master. You will die a horrible death. Su Qing cursed. Jiyu fell into the abyss, and Lin Tian jumped in with him. Now that the two's fate was unknown, Su Qing was sad and angry. A cold light flashed in Shun Yan's eyes. She turned around and slapped Su Qing's cheek. Shut up, you little bitch. Remember your identity. You are just an outer disciple. I am a core disciple, so I know my place. Call me Senior Sister Shun. With a cold snort, Shunyin walked to a gap in the cave and disappeared quickly. Su Qing covered her cheek, her eyes full of anger. However, she quickly looked in the direction of the abyss, and tears immediately gushed out. That abyss was unknown how deep it was. Moreover, the Yin-Chi below was soaring to the sky. The malicious spirit from before had also rushed down. It was obvious that it was a dangerous place. Su Qing and Lu Jie didn't dare to think about the consequences of Lin Tian and Jiyu falling in. It was pitch black all around, and there was a strong wind blowing in their ears. Lin Tian was flying down the abyss at this moment, and he only felt some pain on his cheek. Now, he was in the huge suction force, and he couldn't open his eyes. He could only release his divine sense to explore the surroundings, looking for Jiyu's figure. At the same time, he stepped on the inner spirit sword and flew down with the tool control technique. Under such a huge suction force, it was impossible to use the equipment controlling technique to fly up, but flying down was not a problem at all. Moreover, the speed would be greatly increased, and he would be able to descend even faster. Because Jiyu fell earlier than him, he could only rely on this method to catch up with Jiyu. Found him. Soon, Lin Tian's face lit up with joy. He saw Jiyu's figure. Jiyu obviously also saw Lin Tian's aura, and his face suddenly changed. How did you... You fell from above. Do you think I would just watch from the edge of the abyss? Lin Tian said with a smile. Relying on the tool control technique, he quickly reached Jiyu's side and pulled Jiyu to him. Only then did he completely heave a sigh of relief. Jiyu stared at Lin Tian. He was a little happy, a little touched, and a little apologetic. You're so silly. You're the silly one. You actually risked your life for that kind of person. You saved him, but he set you up. Lin Tiandao. As he said this, Lin Tian's eyes flashed coldly, and a strong murderous intent rose in his heart. Jiyu lowered his head slightly. I'm sorry. Don't say that. I know you're kind-hearted and can't bear to see your fellow disciples in trouble. Lin Tiandao said, but don't do this again in the future. Don't put yourself in danger for unnecessary people. If you do this again, I'll be angry. Jiyu nodded and held Lin Tian's hand, feeling relieved. What do we do now? Jiyu asked. The wind whistled in their ears, and the two of them were still falling. Lin Tian looked up and said, the suction force in the air has weakened a lot. But even so, it's impossible for us to rush up now. After all, The height that the tool control technique can reach is limited. We should have fallen very deep. Now, we can only fall to the bottom and think of a way to get out. That's the only way. Jiyu nodded and said softly, I'm sorry to have troubled you. She knew that if she hadn't gone to save Xing Yin, things wouldn't have developed to this point. What trouble? We're not outsiders, Lin Tian said angrily. Jiyu seemed to be happier. That's true. The wind continued to blow in their ears. After an unknown amount of time, the suction force around them completely disappeared. Lin Tian and Jiyu fell to the bottom of the abyss. The bottom of the abyss was pitch black. It was truly the kind of darkness where one couldn't even see their own fingers. The two of them could only hear gusts of wind blowing, and at the same time, the faint sound of flowing water came from ahead. Lin Tian activated the true essence in his body, and a wisp of flame wrapped around the inner spirit sword, instantly illuminating the surroundings. It was also at this time that the two of them both changed their expressions. The flame on the inner spirit sword illuminated the space within a radius of 5 zhang. Looking around, there were piles of bones everywhere. There were both humans and monster beasts. Not far away, an underground river quietly flowed. The water was dark red, and decaying corpses floated on the water. Black Inchi lingered around them like maggots. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.